Right. This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver, and so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of council for Monday, July 22nd at 7 o'clock. We like to start off our meetings in a good way, and so I'll be reading our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam peoples, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated around. Are there any errors or omissions from the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Hearing none, moved by Councillor Muriez, second by Councillor Ma. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. Council, we have several sets of minutes that have been included in the package. There's 4 sets of minutes here. I believe May 27th, regular meeting of council, June 3rd, regular meeting of council, June 25th, regular special meeting of council, and June 9th, special meeting of council.
So moved.
Any errors or omissions in those minutes as presented? Hearing none, it's been moved by Councillor Muriez. Is there a seconder on the matter? Second by Councillor Ma. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. We do have a period of time at the front end of every regular meeting of council for public input. This is a period of up to 30 minutes for members of the community to come and raise issues of importance to them. We do have several speakers who have signed up to speak. I see 6 that have signed up at the front end of the meeting. We usually have time for about 10. So when I get to the end of those 6 speakers, I'll look around and see if anybody else would like to add their name to the list. The very first speaker that I have is Julia Staub-French. So if you could come up to the front, followed by Patrick Stafford-Smith. Just as Julia is coming in and getting comfortable here, I was just going to mention that this meeting is being held in a hybrid fashion, which means members of the council, staff, and public can participate in the meeting both in person and virtually. And so while we do have regrets from Councillor Forbes, Councillor Back is joining us here virtually here. So you have 6 of the 7 members of council joining us here this evening. Julia, welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all. For those who don't know me, my name is Julia Staub-French, and I'm the Executive Director of Family Services of the North Shore. I am here to speak in support of the Maplewood Gardens Development Project. But before I do, I want to first say thank you, Mayor and Council, because I don't get to come that often. And I do want to say thank you for your financial support and for allowing Family Services of the North Shore to operate our Thrive Family Center from a district property at Maplewood Farm for over a decade. Your generosity allows us to serve over 3,000 parents and children each year, and we know that when we help parents, we can change a child's life forever. In fact, one parent told us, the first time I came, I had a toddler and a new baby, and I was overwhelmed and exhausted. I felt so alone. The staff checked in with me, and the volunteers brought me coffee and a sandwich. I feel so relieved and cared for. So truly, your support in that space is changing lives. Family Services of the North Shore has been an anchor social service in the Maplewood community, providing a range of supports for parents, caregivers, and their children at one of the most vulnerable times of their lives. Our Thrive Family Center is an ideal walking distance from the proposed Maplewood Gardens development and provides daily drop-in programs free of charge. We know that many young families will be moving into the over 500 units, and we are excited to help them connect with their community, meet other parents, and begin their parenting journey with a healthy start. We are also very pleased to see the inclusion of below market rental units in the plan and the increase of overall housing in the area, which we know is important for everyone. I also want to highlight the unique partnership that you may or may not know that we have with Quadrille, Family Services has with Quadrille, and the impact that this has been having on families across the North Shore, but specifically to this Thrive Family Center. We began working with Quadrille almost 3 years ago in the fall of 2021. At that time, we were seeking space to operate our volunteer-led programs, including our Christmas Bureau and our food, clothing, and outreach programs. And upon understanding our role in the community and our need, Quadrille very quickly made several vacant options available to us in the Capilano Mall, including the former Sears department store. It was great to have some of you in to see that space. It's quite a unique operation we have secretly going there. While the space is located in the city of North Vancouver, it is where we prepare food, clothing, and other essentials for Thrive parents in the district of North Vancouver, and where we also train and support our volunteers who come every day to work at our Maplewood Farm Center. So it is related, and I wanted to highlight it for all of you. I wholeheartedly support Quadrille's development plans for the Maplewood area. Throughout our relationship, Quadrille has exhibited a firm commitment to enhancing our North Shore community. And we also look forward to welcoming the new Maplewood Garden families when they settle into their new homes. So I think it's a win-win. And I really appreciate, again, all of your support as always. Right on the dot. Did you see that? Did I almost get it?
Absolutely. No problem at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was 2:49 in my office. So.
Thank you very much for your comments, Julia.
Thank you.
Stop French. Thank you. The next speaker I have is Patrick Stafford Smith, followed by Barry Fenton. I believe Patrick is joining us virtually. I don't see him either. I don't at the moment see Patrick, but there are two call-ins. Is it star 6? If you're one of the call-ins is Patrick Stafford Smith, could you hit star 6? And just say hi, but. Okay, at this point, I don't have Patrick on. I'll circle back to Patrick later. Next speaker I have is Barry Fenton, followed by Jeremy Miller. And Barry is joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're comfortable, Barry, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Barry Fenton. I'm both a District of North Vancouver resident and a member of CHAC, the Community Housing Action Committee. I will be speaking in support of this application this evening, agenda item 8.6, which provides for the rezoning and housing agreements for the proposed housing mixed-use development in the Maplewood Village Plan. This development does comply with the OCP and the Maplewood Village Plan. I have participated in many meetings as the District of North Vancouver OCP was developed over the past 10 years. More recently, I participated in many meetings regarding the redevelopment of Maplewood Gardens, including the most recent public information meeting in July 2023. CHAC members are familiar with the evolution of this development over many years. This application will provide 6-story buildings and a total of 534 residential units and replace 58 older market rental units. This will include 116 market rental, 60 non-market rental, 358 strata units. This is a good mixture of different housing types, including a nonprofit operator, and commercial units, including 33 live-work units. CHAC supports the mix of 60 non-market rental units. 40% are 1-bedroom, 40% 2-bedroom, and 20% are 3-bedroom units. CHAC supports the steps taken to meet the requirements of the DNV Residential Tenancy Relocation Assistance Policy. This housing mix reflects DNV housing priorities through an appropriate mix, type, and size of housing units. It is important to have both market and non-market rental units. This application meets DNV goals and housing priorities, including the rental and affordable housing strategy, and takes positive steps in achieving the DNV housing needs report and provincial housing targets. It is encouraging to see the higher density in the Maplewood Town Center, as this should encourage TransLink to improve transit service into the Seymour area. This new development creates housing options for all ages of DNV residents and for people working in North Vancouver. This application also includes $5.6 million in significant off-site improvements. Council members are encouraged to support this application to allow these needed housing units to be developed in the Maplewood Village Town Center. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Comments, Barry Fenton. The next speaker I have is Jeremy Miller, followed by Brian Bradley. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Great, thank you. So yeah, my name is Jeremy Miller. Thank you for having me here. I'm a North Vancouver resident, business owner, and employer. I'm the owner-operator of Houston Landscapes, which is located directly across the street from the proposed Maplewood Gardens project. And as an immediate neighbor, I will be amongst the most impacted by the development. That said, I am in full support of this project. As I'm sure you are well aware, it's very difficult to attract and retain employees, specifically in the trades and specifically to the North Shore. So we have over 100 employees, most of whom commute to the North Shore on a daily basis and leave the North Shore on a daily basis. So what is caused by 100 commuters coming to the North Shore and leaving the North Shore? It's traffic. So for those who argue that more housing will cause more traffic, it's actually more housing is part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now, when I ask my employers, why aren't they looking for housing on the North Shore? Most of them, without thinking, state that because they can't afford it. That's what's in their mindset. That's what's branded to them, is the District of North Vancouver is unaffordable. And I don't think that's what the brand of a municipality wants to be, which is why I'm impressed by the diversity of the housing offered by the Maplewood Gardens proposal with the rental, affordable and family-oriented housing. So while the project is still a few years away, I'm a very, very firm believer that to solve the lack of housing problem on the North Shore, it's to build more housing. I'm excited about this project. And I guess the last piece is that I walk through the current Maplewood Gardens site almost on a daily basis to go to Belmondo's for coffee or to walk up the Seymour River. And this current site, it's decrepit. It is beyond repair. And I truly believe that the new development will add a beautiful facelift to the garden or to the community. Yeah, and I'm excited to see the development move forward. So, thank you, and I hope you guys approve this project.
Yeah. For your comments, Jeremy Miller. The next speaker I have is Brian Bradley, followed by Jacob Isaac. Brian Bradley joining us virtually. Welcome. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you clearly. Welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak this evening. As you said, my name is Brian Bradley, and I'm here representing Stong's Market in Northwood Village, where we employ over 150 employees. The Maplewood Village Plan was adopted in 2017, indicating the municipality's intention to support growth in the village. As a result, the business community, including Stong's, invested in the Maplewood on the plan promise there would be new housing built here to support local businesses with more customers. This was a key driver in our decision-making process to open a Stong's in the Maplewood Village area. I'd also like to comment, as others have, about the challenges that employers on the North Shore are facing with respect to employee retention and attraction. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find and retain quality employees because they cannot find reasonably priced housing on the North Shore. Building more homes close to jobs and transit hubs like the FIBS Exchange will help local businesses, and it will also alleviate some of the pressures of the traffic congestion on our roads. I do think the provision of the live-work housing, which has been included in the plan for Maplewood Gardens, will also encourage people to work from home, which will support a further reduction in vehicle trips. We're excited by this neighborhood and location due to its existing community, and also in part because of the new town center plan for Maplewood that would bring new housing, not just for future customers, but also more affordable housing that would help us attract and retain employees, which, as I mentioned earlier, is a big challenge for us as a larger employer. As a neighbor down the street from this site, we're excited by the new investment in community and hope that North Van will usher this application to construction. Thank you for allowing me some time.
Thank you for your comments, Brian Bradley. The next speaker I have is Jacob Isaac, followed by Donald Smith. Jacob Isaac is joining us here in person. Welcome. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Jacob Isaac, and I'm here to speak on the Maplewood Gardens development. You may be more familiar with seeing my predecessor, Don Peters, speak on such motions, but I am here very proudly representing the Community Housing Action Committee of the North Shore. CHAC has been very proud to consult on multiple iterations of this project, and currently we are very proud to stand and endorse this proposal for multiple reasons. First and foremost, it clearly aligns with both the OCP and the Maplewood Village Center plan. And beyond this, it is essential to hitting certain targets identified by the district. The Housing Needs Report has identified that 1,500 homes are needed in Maplewood by the year 2030. This is not an ostentatious goal. This is a brute minimum for a healthy Maplewood. And currently, as of the 2021 Housing Progress Report, only 218 of 1,500 homes have been built in the area. This is very concerning and very encouraging when we look at the Maplewood Gardens proposal. With 534 new units, this will greatly contribute to the ends outlined in the OCP and the Housing Needs Report. And beyond that, with 60 below market rental units, we will be able to ensure that Maplewood will be an affordable and accessible location for all residents. Additionally, the development proposes 57 three-bedroom units. This is necessary since the district is far from its 973 bedroom units built by 2026. And it will also help tackle the concerning 2% vacancy rate for three-bedroom units across the district. The OCP has identified Maplewood as a future economic hub of the district. And with 33 live-work units, this development will ensure that artists and business owners will be able to live in the area and contribute to the thriving business community in Maplewood. Finally, I'd really like to commend Quadrille for their tenant relocation protection policy that they've offered with this development. It really is a landmark TRPP for not only the district, but the province. Many current residents in the area have already relocated and taken note of these TRPP benefits. This is indicative of Quadrille not only following through with thorough public engagement, but making sure that there's ongoing support for Maplewood residents. This is not a quick cash in for Quadrille. There has been long-term investment from the organization, and that can be seen through their TRPP. There's a lot of discussion about gentle infill and aesthetic development to make sure that housing is affordable. In reality, this is what affordable housing looks like. This is what responsible housing looks like. This is what responsible future planning looks like. And if council accepts this proposal tonight, this is what responsible government looks like. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments, Jacob Isaac. Next speaker I have is Donald Smith, and then we'll go back to Patrick Stafford Smith. Joining us virtually, Donald Smith, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Just if you could speak nice and loudly into the microphone, that may assist us, but welcome. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Okay, thanks very much, council and all the other participants. I'm representing one of the residents at Maplewood Gardens. And just going back a little bit of history on here. The first proposed council meeting that looked at the building was done approximately November in 2021, of which council overturned the proposal at that time because of the building heights and of the building, and it didn't meet the council's building requirements. However, during that council meeting, they weren't aware that the original plan called for Quadrille, or at that time, the other developer, to build units for the existing residents. And they would be building the rental units first and then moving them from their existing residents into those units. After COVID came and a few others, then the next one came with the Big Bang Theory, saying that they have to demolish all these units and there would be no building units or rental units for them to occupy except at market rates. They did go and say that you could apply to low rental housing. However, low rental housing has a threshold of around $34,000, $35,000. Most of the residents there are making anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000. They've been on rent control, and my fiance, who's living there, has been living there for almost 15 years. She's gone to the set up the individual separate accounts or separate organization to go look for housing. However, she's in a 3 or 4 bedroom townhouse. She uses for international students. She pays around $1,600 to $1,800 a month. And she was on rent control of 2% a year. They haven't increased the rents, obviously, for the last 3 or 4 years because they weren't doing any maintenance. And now the cheapest place she can find in North Vancouver, based on CMHC average, is roughly around $5,000 to $7,000 a month. So this is demoviction. She will have no place to go. She works in North Van. She has been for many years. And although it's heralded as a nice place and everything else, the existing residents have to apply to low rental housing. And if they do not go and get it, then they'll be evicted. Okay. And they have no place to go. I just want to make that point.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments, Donald Smith.
Okay.
I'm going to circle back to Patrick Stafford-Smith, who signed up earlier in the evening. I understand he has joined the meeting and is one of the phone numbers listed. So Patrick, if you press *6, it should unmute you. You want to give that a try?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, I can,
fantastic.
Patrick, I can hear you.
I heard you last time and it wasn't responding, so thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Patrick Stafford-Smith, CEO with the North Vancouver Chamber. And on behalf of the North Vancouver Chamber, I'm here to speak in support of the Maplewood Gardens project. And some of you may remember, I was involved with some of the original or early planning for the area, for the Maplewood plan, and attended some of the sessions in person, and have consulted with many of the local businesses in the area since and at the time. I believe that the desire of the local business community was always to create a complete livable area there where there was new residential density and intensification to support their businesses, especially those ones who moved there in good faith originally. They've been really patient and we're glad to see this plan hopefully coming into action. But the part of the projects that we find are so attractive, and we've all talked about this, this is the obviously the rental housing, which we need, and there's many forms and sizes of this, but they're also close to businesses. And what this means is it not only helps the businesses, but it's also creating a walkable community, and it's got services that are already available for the people who move in. That was a key feature for the business community originally and ever since. We really like to see the new live work and rental units. Live work units obviously support different types of jobs in an economy that's growing as we see it, especially since COVID. I think the mutually beneficial side, the fact that the local services to new residents already exist, and there's a population that's going to help the existing and the new businesses in the commercial space. Adding into all of this, this project is close to current and hopefully potential or future transportation options. So there's opportunity for active transportation. There's opportunity for people to walk, potentially to work, but also definitely for services. And for all those reasons, we fully support the Maplewood Gardens project. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments, Patrick Stafford-Smith. We still have time for about 2 more speakers. Would anybody else like to add their name to the list? Yes, come on up. If you would come on up and have a seat, and if you could give us your name and approximate address for the record, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello, Council. My name is Marvin Hilton, and I live at 2133 Old Dollarton Road, the Maplewood Gardens apartment complex. This is the complex that is scheduled to be torn down, and half of the people I call friends and my community members will be relocated. I am a single income dad with twin boys. I don't work a minimal job. I'm a consultant. But even as a consultant that works on contracts with the government, and both internationally, it's expensive to live in Canada. I've had the chance to speak to my neighbors who tell me their struggles. There's a lot of seniors in my buildings. There are people who work affluent jobs, and there are also people who don't work affluent jobs. But we all struggle. And we all have to buy food, we have to pay rent, and we have all other different engagements to work on in our building. Earlier, someone spoke about the going rate for housing. Currently, I'm looking at a relocation, and the prices I'm hearing is from $3,400 to almost $7,000. I looked at a 2-bedroom in a new uprising skyscraper close to Superstore. It was $4,200 for a 2-bedroom. How do I expect to keep my boys on the North Shore in a separated home to be close to their mom, because I don't want to separate them from their mother, and to keep them in their school at Seymour Heights? It's totally impossible. Each day my kids keep asking me, they're 8, they're like, are you gonna give us up? Are you gonna move away? Is mom is gonna be the only one to have us? And I'm like, no, I'm trying my best to keep us together. Even though we are living in a separated home, I still have to keep the family unit close together. I welcome redevelopment. There's a lot of old buildings in the area, and I like to see what they did with the Stongs area. But I also think there was some decline in the upkeep of these buildings. The building I live in is a really good building, but I could see for the 10 years I've lived in Canada as an immigrant that no one did anything to the building. I've seen floods, I've seen issues with asbestos, I've seen issues where the pipes are clogged. It's almost like you're left to rot until someone comes along and say, we care. While development is important, we have to remember that the first priority is our people, not a physical building. And that's democracy there for you, if you want to talk about that, and humanity. And even as an outsider, now being a Canadian citizen, I don't understand why I always feel this thing where I'm always on the run in Canada. And it's something I convey to my neighbors and my friends back home. I'm like, why are we on the run? Someone needs to care. There are amazing people in this building. There are seniors in this building, and I worry what's going to happen to them. This should also be the priority of this council. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Marvin Hilton. Okay, don't see any further speakers, so we'll move on with this evening's agenda. Okay, council, no recognitions or delegations. There is a noted release of closed meeting decisions in the council package. So moving on to reports from council or staff. I would like to propose a consent agenda for council's consideration. And I'm proposing items 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, as they are all at approval stage and there is no debate proposed for them. Plus 8.5, the development variance permit issuance, and 8.10, which is a recognition of a change in name in the federal program. Would anybody like any of those items withdrawn from the consent agenda?
8.2, please.
8.2, okay. Any other items withdrawn from the consent agenda? Okay, I'll move it. Will somebody please second the consent agenda? Second by Councillor Ma, prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion carries. So that is 8.1, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, and 8.10 have now just been passed by the council. And so that means we're going to start off this evening with item 8.2. This is the off-street residential parking and transit-oriented areas discussion. Now, the item is up for adoption, and so there's actually no further debate on it. Any staff comment at this point? Okay, and so I'm prepared to call the question on the motion. Sorry, somebody please move it. Move it. Thank you, Councillors Ma and Hanson. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? All in favor? Contrary minded? Sorry. Yeah, probably. So the motion passes with Councillor Murray opposed. Okay. Next up, we have item 8.6, what everybody seemed to want to talk about at the beginning of the meeting. So we got right to that nice and quick for you here. So the bylaws 8685, 8686, and 8702 rezoning and housing agreements for a 6-story mixed-use development at 2131 to 2171 Old Dollarton Road. 229 to 297 Riverside Drive, and 2102 to 2128 Front Street. And so this item is up for first, second, and third reading. It's proposed for first, second, and third reading. I'll go to staff for your comments on the matter.
Yes.
And
Your
actually,
Worship.
sorry, I do have two people signed up to speak, I believe, on this item. One person signed up to
The
speak.
applicant, yeah.
Would you like me to deal with that first?
Yeah, I would also like to have Taylor Jenks to be promoted to be a panelist to share her presentation. Thank
Oh.
you.
Okay, I thought she was in the room a moment ago. She's moved to her office. Okay. So just before we do that, though, I do have a speaker. Brennan Finley has decided to speak at the item. Welcome. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. My name is Brennan Finley, and I'm here on behalf of the owner, Quadrail Property Group, to speak in support of the rezoning application. With me today is the project architect, Alan Sevenin, traffic engineer, Tyler Thompson, and our tenant support represented by Shaughnessy Luke, who is with us via phone. A little bit about who Quadrail is. We are a global real estate investment operating and development company that has its headquarters in Vancouver. And we have a strong commitment to creating spaces and communities that enhance the lives of the people that we serve. Within the Maplewood neighborhood, we have built, own, and operate Northwoods Village, which consists of 80 rental units and 65,000 square feet of retail space. We operate and own Northwood Business Park, which totals about 240,000 square feet of employment area and supports a number of businesses. And we have a 193 unit rental building under construction, which includes about 10 below market rental units. We believe the addition of the development in front of you today will assist in realizing a complete and walkable community by providing a variety of housing options, new retail businesses, and employment opportunities, all of which are envisioned in the OCP and the Maplewood implementation plan. As most of you are aware, the history of this project is quite extensive, with an initial rezoning application being made back in June of 2019. That was eventually brought in front of council, as people have noted, in December of 2021. The main reason that didn't move forward was because of building height. And since then, we've taken full ownership of the project and led the redesign to a 6-story height limit across the property. Over the past year, we've worked very closely with BC Housing and a number of other nonprofit operators whose intentions will be to own and operate the below market rental building, which is part of this project. And we will also provide the right of first refusal for existing tenants, as well as support families on the North Shore by providing larger unit sizes. Tenant support has been a major focus of Quadrail as well. From the beginning, we have been committed to ensuring communication to tenants throughout the redevelopment process is supportive and transparent. We have kept rent levels frozen since 2016, provided numerous update letters to tenants, hosted virtual meetings to inform tenants of new plans and answer any questions they might have. We have also made a commitment to exceed the District of North Vancouver's tenant relocation policy to ensure that no tenants are left behind, as that is very important to us at Quadrail. Finally, I just want to acknowledge all the work district staff have done on this project. Numerous departments have committed to reviewing this application and ensuring that it's aligned with the relevant district policies. The attention to detail from staff is greatly appreciated and we believe has ultimately resulted in a stronger development for the community. Thank you for your time. And we're here to answer any questions from council.
Thank you for your comments, Brendan Finley. Kingston, are you prepared to go to, we got the IT matter sorted out?
I hope so, Your Worship. I think Taylor Jenk will have to go to the hot seat to present.
Forgive me when I get this sorted.
Tell that joke, you know, Herman, come on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's take a second to gather here.
All right, welcome Taylor Jenks, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and the public. The proposal before you this evening is for introduction, second and third reading of rezoning and housing agreement bylaws for a mixed-use development in the Maplewood Village Center. The project includes 534 residential units and 8,600 square feet of commercial space. The project is OCP compliant, and as such, a public hearing is not permitted. The subject site, known as Maplewood Gardens, is comprised of 3 properties bound by Old Dollarton Road, Front Street, Seymour River Place, and Riverside Drive, as shown in the image above. The site is approximately 4.3 acres in size, and at the time of the application was host to 58 residential units and 8 commercial, or industrial tenants. Surrounding properties include a mixed-use development, Northwoods Village to the south, 2 mixed-use developments to the west, 1 currently under construction, and any other up for consideration this evening. 1 existing multifamily development further west. To the north are multifamily residential, and to the east and northeast are sites identified for future multifamily development, including a recreational facility to serve the Maplewood community. The proposal itself includes 5 buildings, which all surround a central courtyard. Building C1 in the bottom left includes 157 strata units and 6,900 square feet of commercial space. Building C2 includes 85 strata units and 1,700 square feet of commercial space. Building C3 includes 116 strata. Building R2 at the top right is a rental building with 96 units. And finally, building R1 is a below market rental building with 60 below market units and 20 market units. As intended in the Maplewood plan and the OCP, each of the buildings is 6 stories in height, and together they provide an overall FSR of 2.49. The project complies with existing OCP designations and an amendment is not required. Sorry, there's a slide missing here, but as noted, building R1 includes 60 non-market rental units, which makes up 11% of the overall project. These units target the low to moderate income brackets as defined by BC Housing, which is a maximum household income of between approximately $85,000 and $129,000. Rents will be set at rates which are equivalent to 25% below market and will be measured against metro median rates into the future. These are secured in perpetuity. The image above, which is fairly small, I apologize, shows recent housing projects in the district. And as you can see, the project being considered this evening is providing a substantial number of below market units that are needed by 2028 as outlined in the housing target order. The site itself plays a key role at the center of Maplewood Village. 2 large public plazas are proposed in the southwest and northwest corners of the site, which will serve as anchors to the village center. And the 5 buildings surround a central courtyard, which can be utilized by the public as well as residents. The adjacent Seymour River Place will be extended the length of the project and will serve pedestrians, bicycles, and slow-moving vehicles, connecting the commercial frontage. Pedestrian access is provided from all frontages, creating permeability through the site and connecting the central courtyard to surrounding pedestrian networks. 1.5 levels of underground are proposed and are accessed from Front Street and Seymour River Place. The underground serves vehicle and bicycle parking, as well as a bike wash, repair stations, and end-of-trip facilities for commercial uses. The project will be contributing significant offsite works, valued at over $5.5 million. These include new bike lanes along Old Dollarton Road and Riverside Drive, a rapid transit stop, new sidewalks along all frontages, 2 new public plazas, and the extension of Seymour River Place. The addition of turning lanes on Riverside Drive and Old Dollarton Road, which are designed to improve vehicle flow, as well as servicing upgrades, including water, sanitary, and storm, the undergrounding of hydro network, and improvements to the streetscape, including planting, lighting, and road resurfacing. In addition, the project is contributing nearly 1,800 square meters of land. These improvements have been designed in accordance with the district transportation policies and the Maplewood plan. As a few others have touched on the history of the site, in 2019, a detailed application was submitted on the site for a similar mixed-use project, which included a 12-story tower on the northwest corner. Council considered this application in 2021 and were not supportive in part because of the height. The application before you this evening has removed the tower, reducing the height to match the other buildings in the project and in the vicinity. The application has also redistributed density across the site and increased livability of the units by increasing each unit's access to natural light. Throughout the applications, there have been a number of public engagement opportunities as outlined above. The first was a neighbor notification letter sent during the preliminary application in May of 2018. A public information meeting was held during the detailed application in November of 2019. And council considered bylaw intro in December of 2021, at which time the public also provided comment on the application. After considering public feedback, staff comment, and feedback from council, the project was revised and resubmitted as a new detailed application in 2023. Both a virtual and an in-person public information meeting were held in July of 2023. 50 people attended the in-person meeting and 100 visited the online platform. A total of 45 comments were received, a summary of which is to follow. Additional comments of support have been provided through the clerk's office in advance of tonight's meeting by email, I believe. Throughout the application, the applicant team has provided updates to the residents as recommended in our tenant relocation policy. Project updates have been provided as recently as July of this year. To summarize the feedback received, overall, there's general support for the reduced building height and form, as well as the inclusion of communal outdoor space. There's been support for the range of unit types, including family-oriented units, live-work units, and below-market units. There is support for anticipated commercial revitalization in the area with Seymour River Place and the proposed commercial units. And there's recognition and support for the contributions to alternative transportation options and the significant offsite works. The concerns that have been expressed generally focus around traffic and parking, tree loss, and impacts to the tenants. To touch on the tenant relocation assistance, at the time of the application, there were 40 units eligible for tenant relocation assistance. 5 have chosen to relocate already with the assistance of the relocation coordinator. 35 eligible tenants remain on site, some of whom are expected to be eligible for the below market units once complete. The applicant has chosen to provide not only the requirements as outlined in the tenant relocation policy, such as the support of a tenant relocation team, moving expenses, free rent for 4 months, and right of first refusal, but they've also decided to provide measures in excess of the policy, which include a freeze on rent since 2016, which equates to approximately $6,000 per unit, $55 a month in compensation for each month of tenancy, compared to $35 as required by our policy. And the commercial tenants will also be offered 6 months notice to match the residential provision. These measures will be secured in the development covenant. We'll finish by saying the proposal being considered this evening is contributing to the heart of the Maplewood Village, as well as the rental and non-market rental stock as required by district housing policies. The form and density is compliant with the OCP and the Maplewood plan and is reflective of feedback received from council, the public, and staff over the years. The bylaws are ready for first, second, and third readings, and staff, as well as the applicant team, are available to answer any questions. Thank you for your patience while I sorted that out.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Councillor Ma, I see your hand first. Do you have a recommended motion?
I do. I propose the staff recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Is there a seconder for the matter?
Second here, Councillor Back, if you can hear me.
Second by Councillor Back. I can hear you. Yes. Councillor Ma, your comments?
Okay. Although relatively large in scale, there's a lot to like about this project. There's been some good work with the staff in revising the proposal of quad reel. However, I'll go through my comments as well as some questions. I do recognize that it does meet the OCP in terms of the heights, being at maximum 6 stories and wood frame construction as a result of that. I also like the mix of strata and rental, 67% ownership and 33% rental. It's a good mix. And within the rentals, 22 are market and 11% non-market. And I do notice that there's a good mix of unit types from studios up to 3 bedrooms. And there's accessibility units as well. So all combined, this should create a vibrant community, and the rental properties are secured by a development covenant. However, I do have a question about the rents being below market rents. If I read the table correctly on page 12, they show that the proposed rents are above both the Metro Van medium and the DMV medium rents. Is that correct?
Yes,
Van Zeng?
through your worship, to Councillor Ma. So that is correct. The proposed below market is targeting the low to moderate income range as defined by BC Housing. So it is higher than what normally we would secure as below market rental unit in other development. But it is work out to be about 20% below the market rates. 25%.
Just to add a little bit more to that conversation, Your Worship. The rental rates seem to have been picked to try to support the relocation of tenants generally, as opposed to focusing on low-income tenants. And the low to moderate income limits published by BC Housing for 2024 are between $84,780 for a 2-bedroom unit with a gross family income exceeding that median. And then for a units with 2 bedrooms or more with a family, so with children, up to $134,000 a year. So that's the range of the low to moderate income limits from BC Housing. We have had other projects that have deeper levels of subsidy, but this particular group was targeting this rate. I would note that both of these rental rates are well below market, and I think that was mentioned by some speakers tonight. The market rental rates are closer to $4.60 a square foot for a new unit per month. That's per square foot.
Speak it nice and loud into your microphone, please.
Sure. So these rental rates are well below market rental rates for a new unit, which are closer to $4.60 per square foot for a new unit as a monthly rent. Thank you.
Right. No, it still speaks to the question about affordability. That's not an easy question to answer, but these are pretty high rents. I'm glad that BC Housing is a funder. Can you confirm which funding program? Is it CHF?
Sure. Mr. Finley.
Through your worship to Councillor Ma, it'll mainly be construction financing.
Oh, okay.
To that portion of it, correct. Yeah, we're trying to work with BC Builds right now as part of that because that is replacing some of those programs, but we haven't solidified that.
So that's the former housing hub?
Correct.
Raymond's group. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I do notice that the parking is a bit higher than the average ratio. Is that correct? In other comparable projects?
And Zhang?
Through your worship, can you give us a second to look into that and I'll look back to you. Thank you.
My understanding is some of the projects, I guess, in Lionsgate are more like 0.8, whereas this one is kind of almost 1 for 1.
That's partly because of the commercial space too, though, isn't it?
I don't believe so. I think it's units.
Just to be clear, you're referring to Lynn Creek or Lionsgate. Lionsgate is predominantly the townhouse product. It has more parking spaces per unit typically.
Okay.
In an apartment style complex, yeah, we see more commonly in the 0.8 and then lower rates for affordable housing units if they're deeply subsidized. So there's a range. And just to, maybe if staff could confirm what's the ratio rate for this proposal.
Yeah, I can confirm the ratio. Thank you, Mr. Mulper. So there is a total of 586 vehicle parking spaces, and the commercial parking spaces are only for buildings C1, C2, C3. So there's about 18 of the commercial parking spaces, and the rest would all be residential and visitor parking. And I am just going to look into the comparable parking rates for you for all the other development in the area, and I'll be able to get back to you.
Okay. I also recognize there's a fair number of bike parking spots, so I think that's a real positive. I think the biggest challenge for me was there's currently 58 rental units that will be removed. I recognize that QuadReal is trying to match it with, 60 non-market rentals. Probably not quite a one-to-one match by unit type, but it's a fair attempt. I do acknowledge that people won't lose their homes. I balance that with knowing that overall, more people will have homes, and this project will help to support housing for staff of businesses in the area, such as the two speakers earlier. I also recognize that the tenant relocation efforts by QuadReal, I don't know how many current tenants will be able to return given timeframes and pricing. But I do have a question, the rental unit, I think it's R2. That's the building. Was there any thought to any sort of phasing such that that building could have been built first and the current residents been given an option to move in there? I'm just wondering if that was being considered.
I am, Your Worship, to Councillor Ma, I'm happy to answer the question first based on my understanding of communication with the applicant, but I think the applicant may have further information. I think given the time lapse of this application from the inception to right now, with COVID in between, I think the strategy has changed, and the idea is to do all the rental building and strata building all in one shot so that it reduces the construction impact to the neighborhood, and also some of the residents have moved out. So that was my understanding, and I'm sure you'll be able to.
Yeah, so Mr. Finley, what we'd be interested in is your original proposal had tenant relocation considered through phasing of construction. So the first building built would become the place that other people would be moved to. This newer proposal, it is all in one phase of construction effectively. If you quantified what kind of cost difference that would be to provide a phased in, and why did you exclude it on this newer version?
Yeah, through your worship, through to Councillor Ma, you're right. The previous application did have a two-phase, which envisioned, I believe it was the 12-story and the below market building being built. Tenants were moving into that below market building, and then the next phase was being fully built and occupied. When we took over ownership of the project, we analyzed that quite a bit and realized that it added about 2.5 years of construction timeline. Impacts to the community, feasibility of the project were no longer possible. So we decided to fully enhance our tenant relocation support and really support tenants as best as we could, realizing that it now had to move forward in one phase.
I appreciate that. That's the biggest challenge I have with tenant relocation is, hey, you can come back. Hey, you can, be first, the first opportunity to buy or rent. But it's that timing that they're gone from the community that's most challenging. That's just a personal comment that I'm making.
Yeah, there's one other thing, sorry, through your worship, the councillor, I should add is that when we also did look at it, we realized that there was a significant amount of tenants on site that were making too much income in order to be eligible for the below market units. That below market building was going to be operated by a nonprofit at the time, and they do have their own, like part of the housing agreement, we have to have income testing. That's part of that, BC low to moderate incomes, and some tenants were making more than that, so they wouldn't have been eligible either.
I'm not sure if you remember our conversation. I worked for a nonprofit housing provider, and I used to be at BC Housing. Has a housing provider been selected yet?
Not yet. We're still, sorry, through your worship to Councilor Marr, not yet. We're still working closely with a number of them. Some of the details through, a lot of them want to see approvals of a project before they move forward with a partnership. So we have to get through that first.
I never thought I would say this, but could I have my extra 2 minutes?
Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate how the report outlines the proposal is in alignment with the Maplewood plan. So that's very helpful. And I appreciate that it supports the economic development strategy. And, as some of the speakers tonight alluded to. And I do like the split plaza space. And I think that's good design by PWL. And I also want to thank the advisory panel for their contribution and review. In summary, there's a lot of initiatives happening in and around Maplewood, and I think this council needs to relook at some of that in the fall. However, in terms of this proposal, as I said at the start, there's a lot to like. Overall, it meets the OCP. It aligns with many of the district policy and objectives, and it provides more housing in the district, especially in the town center area. It contributes to the targets outlined in the housing needs report and the new provincial housing targets. I support the staff's recommendation of giving this first, second, and third reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Back is the seconder on the motion. Your comments, please.
Yes, thank you. Second this and give this proposal for second and third reading tonight. I did support the NIT 12 story, which was being proposed to be one of the first mass timber buildings of that scale. That proposal had a lot of positives, including a significant amount of below market rental as well. But here we are today, almost 2.5 years later, and the proposal still hasn't been approved. So I want to see this move forward. This is such a key site in the Maplewood Town Center with its proximity to transit, to businesses, services. It has the opportunity to do a great amount of good to provide, the sort of housing that we need, especially the sort of housing diversity that we need in that part of the district. We heard from the business owner tonight talking about 100 employees commuting to the North Shore every day. That's not unique to his business. We know that this is one of the #1 challenges. That is the retain employees that can live close to where they work. The reality is we're not going to do that until we start approving the types of housing that is going to appeal to the people that work on the North Shore. And I think with this project, I really do like the diversity of housing, the amount of rental, the 60 below market rental housing units. I think will go quite a ways, particularly in Maplewood, where we don't have a huge amount of purpose-built rental. I also want to comment just on the public space and just how this will contribute to the neighborhood, where I think there is a lack right now of sort of those smaller urban parks, and as more people move in, I think
Councillor, we may be having a connection issue with you. I think we're getting the gist of your remarks. That's come across quite clearly. So we can come back and try to reconnect with you again, but I think probably at this point, we'll go to the next speaker in line, and then we'll see if there's an opportunity to come back. Councillor Emery, you're the next speaker up. You're prepared to
I'm
make
back
comments?
now. Oh, can you hear me now?
Councillor, we're going to come back to you in a minute. We're going to have Councillor Emery speak, and then we'll come back to you for additional comments.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I was around when the OCP was created. I was part of that process, and I was around when the Maplewood plan was created. 3 councils have asked for a review of that plan, and it still hasn't happened. The official community plan did not include speculation and shadow flipping, which was what happened in 2010 when the OCP was adopted. And the reason that we're void of 947 3-bedrooms is because the 1-bedroom sold easier on the foreign market. They were first marketed, the vast majority of 1-bedroom units that were approved in those first years were marketed overseas. They were not marketed here first, and they were all 1-bedroom units, and it was because they were easier to sell. I can't believe that I'm sitting here again, looking at displacing more people from our community and tearing down the last remnants of affordable housing on the North Shore. There's 3 other properties in this community right across the street, all filled with families and people that have lived here for decades, single parents, seniors, and they're going to be next. I think this is about land costs and the amount of money that was paid for this property. I don't even want to know what the 3 bedrooms are going to be worth in the market. If the non-market are $3,200 a month. Like, what are we doing? It's almost like we're celebrating that $3,200 a month is less than market, so we're going to justify it. I cannot believe that we are going to displace 35 people to make way for units that cost $3,200 for people that make $84,000 to $134,000 a year, and that's more than I make. And I have 2 jobs and 3 kids. But I got divorced and I got a settlement, and so I was able to buy something. That's the only reason that I live in this community still. And I grew up here. My dad grew up here. My grandfather came here in the 30s. I can't even believe we're talking about this. For the businesses that think that this is going to be good, I'd ask you, where are your employees and where are the people that are visiting your businesses parking right now? I live in this community. I live down the street. And every single street in Maplewood Village, the gardening center, they park all of their trucks in Old Dollarton. There is no parking. My daughter works. All 3 of my children work in Northwoods. And one of my daughters works there still, and she leaves 45 minutes early to park her car because there's no parking anywhere. And this council, or the previous council, I think, approved removing a floor of parking in the rental on Old Dollarton Highway to get rental. It was originally a market strata project. So there is no parking. The addition to reserve on the 40 acres off Dollarton Highway behind the old Crab Shack is still in process to be transferred to the Tsleil-Waututh. And we really don't know what their plans are for the future. Under the Innovation District, which was a previous partner of QuadReal, Darwin, their plan under the ministry, the road network failed. The road network failed under the proposal that Darwin Properties brought to the municipality for the Innovation District. If that project failed the road network, what will a potential redevelopment of residential units do to the area? I'll come back.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Little. Thank you to the staff for all the work on this proposal. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you to the members of the public who have come out to speak. Thank you for all the comments of council to this point. I cannot support a project of this size, 535 residential units in this location at this time. I agree with the comments of Councillor Emery. I can say that I appreciate the need for housing, as I'm sure Councillor Emery does as well. I appreciate the need for rental housing, especially affordable rental. I have some questions as to whether there's going to be anything affordable in this proposal, but conceptually, I appreciate the need for affordable rental. And I do also appreciate the proposal calls for some commercial. However, from my point of view, when we contemplate this type of a development in this location, we must clearly consider the people who already live there, as was so eloquently put by Councillor Emery, but we must also ask, does this location possess the necessary transportation infrastructure to support this new influx of residents? This proposal calls for 586 parking stalls. Well, it's true that perhaps some of the occupants of this new proposal or project would work on the North Shore. Many, many more will commute across the bridge. This is already an extremely busy area. There's only 2 roads out of the Seymour neighborhood, and we've seen what happens when one of those roads is closed due to an accident or other mishap. We've already faced critical shortages. We already currently face critical shortages in healthcare and in our hospital system. Can our schools absorb these new residents? before we add this number of persons to this community, 534 units will likely house well over 1,000 new residents. We must consider all of their needs, not just their need for housing. Before we approve projects of this magnitude in this location, I would like to see much better planning for transportation and other critical infrastructure. I'm influenced by the fact as well that the proposal calls for over 3/4 of the units to be strata, 358 strata units. And we've talked about the income levels required for the affordable units. We wanted to stay clear, I think, for the income levels for the rental units. Well, I can assure you that the income levels required for the 358 strata units will be far, far from low to moderate income. This will do nothing to provide the kind of workforce housing that our community so desperately needs, except perhaps with the affordable component. Now, I can say if the project had more rental and more affordable, I would have to take a different view potentially of the project. At the end, the question is, would our community benefit from adding this number of units to this location with this mix of strata and rental? And I've given my answer. I want to address the issue that we're under a provincial order to build housing. And I appreciate that, I'll take my next 2 minutes, that the provincial government would like us to approve this project and would like us to build more housing. I'll respond to that in 2 ways. First, I believe that we can achieve the housing units specified in the housing order without this project. The order that we were forced to comply with is actually to build less housing than we had built in the previous period of time. So I believe if we just carry on the way we are, we will indeed meet those housing orders without bringing in this massive project to this location. Further, I wish it to be extremely clear that my duty is to the residents of North Vancouver and to the livability of our community. And I will always place the best interests of our residents and the welfare of our community first when making decisions of this type. So notwithstanding the fact that I know a lot of painstaking work has been put into this project, I believe it to be too big, it has too much strata, not enough rental, not enough affordability. And for a project of this size, I believe we must plan much better for the necessary investments in the required infrastructure to support this number of new residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hanson. Next, I have Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't have my microphone. There we go. Pardon me. Sorry, I just have to get to the right page on here. So as we've heard, the previous iteration went to council, some members of this council in 2021. And had it not been rejected then, it would be close to being completed and occupied and reducing the housing crisis we have on the North Shore. People would be close to moving in now, and the on-site tenants would have been able to move into the new units because that was the deal back then. But it was rejected. So here we are, another 3 years have gone by, everything gets more expensive. And we now have a project before us that fits the needs of this community and the OCP and the action plan and the housing needs report. It expands the supply of new rental and non-market housing for low to medium income tenants and the diversity of housing, including live-work units, strata, non-market, and market rentals. I have a couple of questions. One is, I wanted to confirm whether the current tenants will get first refusal of the new non-market.
Yeah, through your worship, yes, they will be. So there is Obviously, there is, so for R1, there's like 20 market rental units and a 60 below market unit, which is pegged at low to moderate income. So to be able to move back into those low to moderate income, they will need to meet the income test, and which is, we just said about 80K to 129K. And then otherwise they would have first rights of refusal or purchase. I would imagine that's also the option. That's very standard in accordance with our tenant relocation policy.
Thank you. And I have another question is, I'm wondering, I'm always very concerned about what happens to seniors in particular who get kicked out of their housing. And I'm wondering if it's possible to allocate a certain portion or percentage of the non-market to eligible seniors and or disabled housing.
Your worship, we haven't really gone to that level of detail, and I would imagine the applicant's tenant relocation consultant would know their existing tenants' makeup and their housing needs. And so maybe I think they should be taking care of their housing needs for sure. So I will let the applicant answer that question.
Through your worship to Councillor Pope, it would depend on the nonprofit operator that we would partner with. Some of them are seniors, some of them focus more on families. It all depends on the needs of their list of people who are looking for housing in the North Shore. So it's very dependent. If it was something council wanted to pursue, it would be something that we could definitely look at to prioritize seniors as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've heard support from people who have written us, former tenants. Also support tonight from the North Shore Family Services and CHAC and several businesses who have told us that it is very difficult to attract employees, that 100 to 150 at Stong's and the other business that we heard from tonight, all commuting, all adding to that traffic congestion. That is the problem. The problem is people can't afford to live here, or they can't find rentals to live here, even if they're earning a decent low income salary. So they have to commute from a long ways away and across the bridges, and it adds to the mess that we're in. So I say it's time to move forward, get the housing this community desperately needs, and hurry up and get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Checking back in with Councillor Back. Councillor Back has now tried to call in here. So Councillor Back, you'll be muted until you press *6 in the system. There you go. Great. Can you hear me? Councillor Back, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Or like?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I'm not sure how much of my previous comments came through. Obviously, I was seconding the motion and speaking in support of it, having been on council when this application came forward in 2021. I did hear all the comments of my colleagues. As Councillor Pope has highlighted, 2.5 years have passed. In that time, we could have very well seen a development very close to being complete in this location, and instead we're still in a stage where we don't have anything rezoned. And I think what's come forward in this application is responding to the needs that we are hearing in the community as far as creating the sort of affordable homes that we want to see in this part of the district, with both the below market and the market housing. I do like the live work units that are included in this proposal, as well as the smaller commercial spaces, which I think will provide a benefit to the Maplewood area, where there are lots of small businesses, and I think as more people move into this area, we're going to want to see a more diverse mix of businesses there. So I also commented on the public space here. I think that's a strong feature of this proposal, in the fact that there's going to be you're going to be able to access it from a number of parts of the site, and I think that type of park and public space will be well used by residents in this area. In terms of the levels of affordability, I I guess I would question anyone who's not in support of this. If you don't support this on a piece of property that's, you know, in a town center, then what would you support? Because this truly is a proposal that's trying to address some of the major affordability challenges that we have. We're not going to do it through one site or one project, but I think this does have the potential to deliver a lot of more affordable housing and diverse housing that we know we need. It's part of the solution, and that's why I'm proud to support it. So those are my comments at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Muir, you're up to speak a second time.
How much is a parking stall and a bike stall and storage? How much does that cost extra a month?
We have a monthly rental rate for a parking stall.
Through your worship to Councillor Murray, are you talking about rental or condo?
I'm not worried about the strata condos.
Okay.
I'm worried about the people that are being displaced, and the people that are, I'm not sure how $3,000 is going to impact our housing crisis, but let's add the extra numbers on top of it.
Through your worship to Councillor Murray, it's about $100 a month for parking. That's what we charge at our rental building next door, and there's currently a wait list.
And the bike
we don't charge for bike parking, no.
storage?
There is no rentable storage in this project.
Wow. How big are the 3-bedroom units?
The 3-bedroom units can range anywhere from just over 900 square feet to about 1,000. I'm just looking at my project architect, if that's accurate. Yeah, I think it's around about 900 to 1,000.
1,000 for 3 bedrooms. And what's the 1-bedroom?
The 1-bedrooms will range anywhere from the mid 500 square feet to the low 600 for like a 1 and 10.
Right. Thank you very much. 9 tenants from Emery there was 53 families displaced from Emery Village. I think that number's right. It could be 67.
Well, there's 61 units.
61 units, right. So out of those 53, when the Emery project displaced all of them, 9 came back. 9 qualified to come back in. 9. And the project's still being built. It'll be a 10-year project. This project, there's no guarantee that they'll break ground on this project. Just FYI, we have we can't force them. So they get their zoning and they can hold the property. The project next door that is currently being built sat for several years. It was flipped twice. So, you know, just because it passes here, which it sounds like it maybe, I don't know what's going to happen, but just because it passes in a council doesn't mean it has to be built. It can wait until economics are more reasonable for the applicant. So there's no guarantee that this housing will be built. I think that if we are saying that a 3-bedroom, 1,000 square feet for $3,200 plus $100 for parking is solving the housing crisis in this community, I think we really need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what does that mean? Like, when does that ceiling crack? When is it 5,000? When is an apartment worth $2 million? I mean, we know there's some up in Edgemont that are, but when do units become that much down here at Strata? You know, it really is an example of our society and capitalism and how we're not gaining control. We have not made this community more affordable, nor have we lessened the issues of transportation in this community. Both have gotten way, way, way worse.
Thank you, Councillor. So my own comments on the matter. First thing I start off by saying, I really miss public hearings. This is again one where we're receiving new information up until the time we're expected to make a decision. And that's an extremely frustrating situation for us. We used to hear all of the information from the community through a public hearing. Then we got a couple of weeks to sort of mull it all over, look over the minutes and come to our decision. And instead we're being compelled to make the decision with having just had new information shared with us, which is a frustrating situation for me. There's no question that there's always going to be a displacement, when you produce new units, you're going to have the effect of displacing the old purpose or old use for the site. And there's no question that there's some very vulnerable people in this area that will be affected by that. And I can't entirely lay that on the shoulders of the developer who's trying to bring forward the project, because the developer wants to also achieve other objectives to produce new housing going forward, and that's an important thing for our community as well. But I do think that I do recognize the efforts that they've made to exceed the tenant relocation program that's identified by the District of North Vancouver, something that's going to be harder and harder for us to enforce without full rezoning processes through going forward. But we do appreciate the effort that's been made in this case. I wish there was a way to phase in the development so that we could lessen the displacement so that people could be accommodated right away. But as you've heard, that depends on a very different type of construction on the site, and is not what's being proposed currently. I voted against the project when it was first proposed, not because of its density, not because of its parking ratio, but because the Maplewood Village plan, I didn't want to see towers there. There's lots of opportunity for towers over in the Sealand neighborhood. We wanted the characteristics of Maplewood to be much calmer density, and the tallest thing we wanted you to see was the trees in the neighborhood. And that's okay to have different characters. We don't have to stuff as much density as we possibly can in every single neighborhood. We can pick and choose, and we can try to have different forms and massing in different communities. When I voted against it, I very specifically said that I was opposed to the tower, and I was opposed to 6 stories on Riverside. I wanted them to profile the building and bring it down to 4 stories facing Riverside. They have removed the tower. They did not do the profiling on Riverside. But I still think that the public benefit from this project going forward outweighs the negatives, as much as I know it is going to deeply impact a number of people who currently live in the site. So I don't come to the decision easily in this case, but I will be supportive of the project going forward at this time. I think it's time. I go down to Belmondo all the time. That's a neighborhood I'm in constantly as a Seymour resident. My kids have worked in Northwoods, and I got to say, it's time for that site to be redeveloped. It's been in a poor state for a very long period of time. It's time to get on with it. So I'll be supportive of it.
Mayor Little, I
I've spoken twice.
I know. I got an email from somebody this afternoon, a business that lives that is right in the area, a professional business, and they've lost 2 employees because of parking. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. I see no further speakers at this time. Prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And I believe Councillor Back. There you go.
Yay.
And opposed. Noted with Councillors Hanson and Murray opposed. The matter is passed. Okay. All right, Council. Want to go right on to 8.7, or would you want a leg stretch or something, or? I'm going to put a break in somewhere, so it's either before 8.7 or after 8.7. Leg stretch. Okay, we're going to call a 3-minute bio break stretch. So as they say, sitting is the new smoking. Get up, stretch, have a little walk around, grab a glass of cold water, and then we'll get right back to it. Can we have a slide made that says council's in recess, or the meeting's in a recess and will return soon, or something like that?
Absolutely. For sure do that. Oh my gosh, it's so wrong.
Below, I think. Yeah.
On the right side. Yeah, right there. There's a key in there. Yes, yeah, actually. Oh, I just pulled it out. Yeah.
Thank you. I admire you speaking up for the public, and I really appreciate that. You know, lots of people don't see that in Canada. So that's a very good. You can often think that we're doing the people when we're outdoing the people. A lot of things that we're not going forward in this meeting, I think the district is really looked into, and that area is also listed as a tourism area. So we have a lot of foot traffic. There's also a chemical plant next door with, I think, 100 meter radius evacuation area in case of an explosion. What do you think that one people in the area where there's an evacuation of the chemical plant exploded? And we got measures like last year, thing that they have to open up a chemical plant. And they also noticed that there's a possibility of risk to the public, inclusive of that area. Yeah, so those are not taken into consideration. Also, Quadrio and Darwin also tried to sever themselves in agreement, but Darwin also signed a legal binding letter to most of the people in our building, stating that they will be moving into exactly into a phase, and they also gave us the price at the time. And there was also a display that they gave us. We still have our letters. We presented those to Quadrio, and Quadrio refused to acknowledge that. That's legally binding, and so we were planning to get a lawyer, which we're still doing in our neighborhood, to actually go against the district and both Quadrio and Darwin, because you signed something into legal binding with us, you can't go against it. Well, you should have. Yeah. Well, we do have lawyers that work involved in this. There's I think one lawyer that we didn't work something, but we're trying to figure out that letter. I still have mine, and we were told that we were given equivalent units to where we live, and this isn't a if you would be qualified. This was a sign that you will get. We put our name on this, and we told what means you want it, what that means you want it. So it is what it is. I know, but you know, just wanted to come and see the photos, and I'll take that back to the community and go. All right, thank you very much. Nice meeting you. I'll met you at Adjournment.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I call the room back to order. Okay, I see. I have a majority of council present, so I'm going to resume. Okay, we're moving on to item 8.7. This is bylaws 8672 and 8673, OCP amendment and rezoning for a revised application for a 104-unit townhouse development at 1915 to 1987 Glenaire Drive and 1974 to 1990 Belle Isle Place or Belle Isle North. I go to staff for opening comments, please. Oh, actually, again, I have a member of the public who's signed to speak. So Rebecca Nguyen, please, welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much, Mayor Little. Can you guys see my screen? It's okay.
Just check.
Perfect. I also have paper copies if that's too small for anybody. Just wave your hand and happy to bring it over for you. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor and Council. My name is Rebecca Nguyen, and I've been involved in all 4 of City Mark and Woodbridge's townhouse projects to date in Lionsgate Village over the past 8 years. I'm here to talk about our proposed townhouse project called Belle Isle North that you're considering next tonight. Our team has spent hundreds of hours chatting with people in the neighborhood, all with the goal of providing housing for a variety of family sizes. We talked to people who wanted to downsize and live in our townhomes and families who wanted to raise their kids back on the North Shore. We have tailored our design for the proposed project based on what we've learned with our last 3 projects here in Lionsgate. This includes, for the latest proposal, an entirely stacked townhouse format with slightly smaller townhouse sizes compared to previous projects. With a list of over 2,500 interested people for a 41-unit townhouse project close to the river in the same neighborhood, as shown in the northeast corner of the map in front of you labeled future townhouses, we know there's a significant demand for housing like this, serving the missing middle, especially young families and downsizers. In our past efforts in the neighborhood, we also heard the importance of revitalizing Belle Park, as shown in yellow in the center of the diagram, and help create an expanded green space for the community by doing an old road purchase and land exchange with the district. We have had extensive conversations with our neighbors in the single-family areas adjacent to our townhouse project Ebb and Flow, resulting in the design and delivery of an expanded large landscape buffer for the existing single-family homes to the east, shown in yellow in the right-hand side of the map. This was achieved by moving a small amount of density from our ebb and flow townhouses to the village center to the proposed site, as shown in the blue arrow. We hope that council will support this key strategy of utilizing the tool of transfer density as part of the overall efforts to deliver housing that is in line with its district's housing mix goals for Lionsgate Village. Essentially, the density transfer represents 4 to 6 families who wish to live in the townhouses in this area. We believe this is an appropriate place for our proposed site, being closer to the village center and away from the single family to the east. The proposed Belle North project has responded to council's previous comments about a month ago and includes the delivery of now 14 lock-off suites that can add to the secondary rental stock, targeted for rent to a person making around $40,000 a year. The project has also reduced the number of parking stalls by 5% and features a shared e-bike fleet for residents for the purpose of encouraging bikes for local trips instead of jumping in the car. In addition, the project delivers $1.9 million in CACs, which can be used by the district for supporting affordable housing initiatives. Finally, we would like to mention that our project was able to acquire land to deliver a brand new road connection, which took several years to accomplish, to give the district a more completed and connected neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Rebecca Nguyen. Okay. Looking to staff for your comments, please. Yan Zhang.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just wanted to provide analysis of how this revised application has responded to the issues identified in the council motion from May 27th, when the project was first presented to council. So if I can have the presentation. So I can start. So basically the council resolved that the matter is referred back to staff to report back on lock-off units, parking requirements, and affordability, accessibility, and density transfer options. And so I just thank you. So that's the council motion, and there are 5 issues identified in the motion. I'm going to do a quick analysis, just give you an overview. So generally, the revised application, as pointed out by the applicant, there is an increase of the number of lock-off suites from 10 to 14, and a decrease in the total unit count from 108 units to 104 units, and then a 8 stall reduction in vehicle parking, and just to stay here, actually, yeah. And then subsequently, some alteration to the unit mix. So in terms of the reduced unit yield and increase to the lock-off suites, the lock-off suites increased by 4 from 10 to 4. And as a result, the overall unit has been reduced from 108 to 104, while remaining in the total density intended for the site. The unit mix has also slightly altered with an increase of 4 3-bedroom plus lock-off units, and a reduction of 8 1-bedroom units. So the unit mix has rejigged a little bit to allow the 4 additional lock-off units. And as the applicant has stated in their letter in the package, that they estimated the majority of these lock-off units would actually be used as rental, given the supplemental income they will generate and help with the mortgage payment. And then the next one is about the reduction of vehicle. The reduction of the 8 stall then has allowed for 17 additional storage lockers capable of accommodating 34 bicycles and an increase in the capacity of the stormwater detention tank located along the northern boundary of the site. The next, please. In terms of affordability, in addition to the 4 lock-off suites that would expand the rental opportunity offered on site, the proposal is proposing to contribute approximately 1.9 million CAC to the district, of which it can be used at council's discretion to offset costs of social housing projects or to use to develop partnership in the provision and management of such social housings or towards the acquisition of land. And staff do consider the proposal broad contribution towards the housing supply and the missing middle housing quite significant, especially taking into consideration that townhouse typology development are not that conducive to the provision of below market housing, as the units have a relatively high cost per square foot and come with very costly monthly strata fees for any nonprofit housing providers to take that on. And overall, what this graphic is showing, and it's in the staff report, is that there is a large number of approved and in-stream rental units to be delivered in the within the Lionsgate Village Center on its own. And this proposal in the peripheral area contributes to the much needed supply of strata housing in the area in a form that is usually exclusively developed as strata housing, popular with young families. The next one is about affordability. So council has inquired about the possibility of enhancing accessibility features of this development. I will say the accessibility has been a subject of the staff and applicant significant amount of time reviewing this and trying to improve on. So as a result of that exercise, 2 of the 7 pedestrian entrance, the applicant is able to, for one of them, is able to provide at grade, and the other one was provided with ramp. So we have discussed the challenge of the site slope, which has a crossfall of over 6 feet from a northeast to southwest and a very high water table. And so this is really cost and design prohibitive to provide the additional ramps or additional at-grade access point into the site. 2 elevators with automatic door openers provided from the parkade at a developer's contribution or discretion. Building code does not require that. And then in total, if you're looking at the interior of the site, 23 units would be internally accessible at grade from the courtyard. And 10 units would meet the basic accessible design standard, of which all various voluntary enhanced accessible design features are built in. So overall, I would say that even with the district accessible design policy, it is relatively up for flexible interpretation when it comes to townhouse developments. And it's relatively reflective of the type of housing that we're looking at. Units at grade level, if in a stacked townhousing form, perhaps could provide some accessible or aging in place units, but really that depends on the product that the applicant is intending on providing. And then the last one, as discussed in staff report, the proposal in front of you as received incorporated transfer of density, which is about 0.7 FSR, which is the equivalent of 4 to 6 units. Council, if you wanted to see an application that does not incorporate the density transfer, then the option of the resolution is on this slide, which is to refer the application back to staff for to exclude the density transfer. So, and this approach is not recommended staff. Instead, staff recommend that this application as revised be forwarded to public hearing to hear directly from the public and for council further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be moving the staff recommendation that this item be granted first reading and be referred to a public hearing. Is there a seconder on the matter? Seconded by Councillor Ma. I was supportive of it at the first time. I think that the modest improvements that have been made will make the units more flexible with more lock-off suites, and so that's an improvement. But I think you've met the key characteristics that we're looking for in the Lower Capilano Lionsgate neighborhood, and so I'll be supportive of granting first reading and referring the matter to public hearing. Councillor Ma, your comments?
Thank you. Thinking back to May, I believe Councillor Back and I believe the mayor would have supported this project. I was actually okay with there being only 10 lock-off units in the applicant's previous proposal. To be frank, I actually don't like the conversion of 4 standalone units to becoming lock-off units. I believe we need to understand that lock-off units may or may not be rented out. That's a decision of the unit owner. However, we now have 4 less units available to families who want to buy units. Without getting into a debate about the economic principles of supply and demand, the change by the developer results in 4 less units available on the market. Notwithstanding that change, I continue to support this project. This is the 3rd project by this developer in the area. I believe that the other 2 projects have been well received. The developer has, again, been responsive to council feedback. The units may not be affordable to all, but we need to provide different forms of housing, such as townhouses, because young families may not yet be able to afford a house. It also gives options for seniors who want to downsize. There are significant offsite improvements in CACs in the form of cash from the developer. The amount of 1.92 million that council can use for other purposes in these current times of financial challenges, that's a big benefit to the district. With respect to the density transfer, I now have no issues with it given the extra explanation by staff in the current report. I again support the staff's recommendation, and I look forward to hearing from the public about this project at a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mah. Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the applicant. I support this project going to public hearing at this time in this form. Since the last proposal, we've added 4 lock-off suites for a total of 14. We've reduced the parking stalls by 8, and we've reduced the unit count by 4, from 108 to 104. I respect the efforts made by the proponent to make these changes. When the prior proposal for this site came before us, I said I wanted to see more affordability, and I believe this is the best that we're going to get in terms of affordability for this site. I'm comfortable with the density transfer. I wouldn't want to see any further delays with the project. And I do note that the proposal calls for nearly $2 million in CACs. And for my part, I hope that that money can be used to create affordable and social housing in our community.
Councillor Hanson. Got Councillors Murray, Pope, and Back. Councillor Murray.
I'm fine with this going to hearing, but did we not talk about this density transfer on this application the last time?
We did.
Okay.
But it was rejected last time.
I understand. So where it says density transfer options, why is the only option refer it back? Like, why isn't there 2 proposals that could go forward based on that previous discussion? Because it was based on density transfer.
Mr. Milburn.
Your worship, Ms. Ang could add, but I think it would require substantive redesign of the project, requiring essentially a different zone. We'd have to change the zone standards, and staff don't typically prepare 2 complete zones. And also the applicant wished to proceed on this basis. The applicant understood that there was concerns by council, but they also understood that this was a previous direction of council, consistent with a vision to try to mitigate the impact of townhouse development in the community. And this was part of that discussion at the time.
I just remember that that conversation was quite in depth in regards to the density transfer and why didn't we have another option to consider? It was in the report. Why weren't there 2 options? One to go forward with the density transfer, one to go forward without the density transfer. So I thought there would be some information provided on that, except it's just like it was before, refer it back to staff. So I hope we never run into this again. Yeah, I mean, I thought staff was going to come back with another option. So anyway.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Pope.
Thank you. I support this project. I appreciate the efforts the applicant has made to make improvements in it, to increase the number of lock-off suites to 14. I hope that they'll be used as rentals. I understand there'll be micro suites, and so they do appeal to lower income people and or could potentially also be housing a nanny that would otherwise have to find somewhere else to live, or a student going to school. And I have no problem with the density transfer. I'm pleased to see the parking was reduced a bit, although it could have been more. Mainly, I feel good about this project because of the 1.9 million in community amenities. And I would like to suggest that we attach instructions to this somehow, that this money go directly to the Affordable Housing Fund. Can we do that?
Check with the clerk. Is that a follow-up after the decision is made? It's contingent on the project being completed, or is that referral of funds or ascribing funds? Well, maybe Mr. Milburn.
Thank you, Worship. The usual form is referral to the budget process, so council can weigh and balance its expenditures on CACs. Ultimately, that would be the source the money would be transferred to. If council wished to spend it on social or supportive housing, it would be the Affordable Housing Fund. So it's the right fund. The question is, would council like to direct that money now or wait for it to be part of the budget process?
I think the point was that as the CAC winds down, anything that goes to the CAC, and this would go to the CAC, will be referred to the Affordable Housing Fund.
I just would like to see it stated clearly that it goes to the Affordable Housing Fund now and not become sort of part of some other process.
And again, Your Worship, that's at council's discretion. If council wishes to do that at this time, the normal process is referral to the budget process, but it's fine. Council can direct that money is being expended for this
I'm
purpose
nervous
at this
about
time.
amending this in advance of a public hearing. I'd rather us do it as a separate process. I don't have an issue with us coming to that decision and not waiting for the budget process to do it. I don't want it to interfere with the public hearing process.
I don't either, but does it have to be an amendment? Is there some other form?
It can come in the form of resolution, which is essentially a direction to the finance department to transfer the funds once received. So it doesn't have to come in the form of a bylaw, essentially direction to staff to transfer the funds at the time they're received. The option is there for council.
Let's do that then.
Can we, I'm trying to think about what we can do tonight at first reading. And I think it would probably be best for us to, because it will all be contingent on the other readings being completed. You can't actually do it until the readings are completed.
Thank you, through your worship. I would recommend perhaps after second and third reading, a motion arising would be appropriate. That means that after second and third reading, the bylaws would be proceeding to adoption. At that time, the funds would be a standalone motion.
We put it forward as a resolution and then we table it until after adoption.
It would happen at second and third reading. So when the project returns from public hearing, when it's considered for second and third reading, at the time, Councillor Pope or another councillor may propose that motion as a resolution arising, not tied to the bylaws as its own standalone, but at the same time, the item is being considered.
Okay. So when it comes back for second and third, make a follow-up resolution, and that's the right time to do it.
So I'm not thrilled about that because I think that it should go before the public as this is what's on the table and this is what you're looking at. So if people, if the public's concerned that there isn't affordability in this project, the answer is going to be right there. Well, 2 million will be put into the Affordable Housing Fund because of this project. And that's what I'd like to see up front, stated somewhere.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. If it is council's pleasure, you can do it before second and third reading. Just on the understanding that if the bylaws do not get second and third reading, then it would be a moot resolution.
Yeah, but then that means doing it
right now. Yes, after this.
After the public hearing and before second and third reading, or right now.
I would recommend not doing it at the public hearing. I would say if you're going to consider that before second and third reading, once you have disposed of this and voted on this motion as a motion arising.
Okay. So I hope that's satisfactory. So we'll complete this motion that's on the floor. And then if this passes here, then I'll come to you immediately for a resolution that future CAC's funds from this be directed back into the Affordable Housing Fund.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other, I have Councillor Back, your comments, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I am pleased to support this item going to first reading, or receiving first reading, going to public hearing. I'm pleased that it was able to come back from the last time it came forward in May without too much delay. I think that the increase in the number of lock-off suites by 4 is a positive update to the proposal. I do think those will be used as rental. I mean, I think that's why, you know, people look to buy townhomes that have lock-off suites is so that they can rent them out. And so I'm happy with that. I think the reduction in parking is appropriate as well, given the location in the Lionsgate Town Center and its proximity to transit. So yeah, I don't see these as substantial changes, and I was comfortable with the density transfer before as well, because it made the other site that this developer owns and developed, you know, more pleasing and better access to the park there along the river, and for the neighboring properties, it created a better development. So I'm comfortable with that as well, and happy to support it.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Back. See no further speakers at this time. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Yay. Thank you. Councillor Back, Councillor Pope, I'll come to you on, I would suggest the wording would be then that following successful completion of second and third reading, that staff direct the funds, any CAC proceeds to the Affordable Housing Fund. Does that meet your needs? Yep. Okay, so that's your motion. Okay, Councillor Hanson, you're seconding the motion. So discussion on that motion. Any additional comments, Councillor Pope? No. Okay, Councillor Hanson, additional comments? Okay, all of council, Councillor Ma?
I'm just wondering, is Rick on the line?
Mr. Daniluk, we don't have a finance rep here with us at the moment, but we will by the time this matter comes to pass.
What are the implications of this?
This was actually what was going to happen anyway. The money was going to go to the CACs, and as we wind down the CACs to meet the obligations of the new provincial requirements, we were going to take the CAC fund and flip it into the Affordable Housing Fund. And so it's just making sure that it's part of this development, but that was our intent with the CAC fund as we wind down CACs.
It's fine, but it seems like if that was going to happen already, then this isn't really necessary.
It's fine. Provides clarity in the public hearing about what the money is going to go towards. It doesn't harm it. Okay. Okay. Any additional comments? Prepared to call the question? All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay. Moving on to item 8.8. This is the development permit for Emery Village Phase 4. Look to staff if there's any opening comments.
Yes, I have, Your Worship. I have a quick introduction, if I may.
Please.
So this is the last phase of the proposed 4-phase Emery Village development. And thank you. And Mosaic Homes applies for a development permit on this lot 4 Emery Court as a 61-unit strata development. The proposal requires council consideration of a development permit for form and character and energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emission reduction. That's what we're here for. So here is the site context. This is a phase 4. This phase 4 lot is outlined in red and located at the northeast quadrant of the master plan site. To the west is Kirkstone Park. To the east, bordering this phase 4 lot, is a townhouse complex at Yorkwood Park. To the north, Mountain Village complex. To the south, existing single families. Next, please. So the rezoning of the entire site was approved by council in 2018. And development permit was issued for phase 1 and phase 2 of the project in September 2018. And a separate development permit for phase 3 was issued in June 2022. So phase 1, highlighted in the yellow highlight, is a 6-story rental apartment with 64 rental units, 42 of which is now market units. This building was complete and issued occupancy in May 2023. And phase 2 is a 222 market strata unit development in 2 12-story building with a 1 8-story market strata building with amenities for the entire development. And this phase is currently under construction and estimated to be completing between 2024 and early 2025, late 2024, early 2025. And phase 3, yet to be built, is a 46 unit townhouse development with 6 3-story townhouses. And this phase is currently under construction and is anticipated to complete in September 2025. And then we have phase 4, which is the subject DP application, propose a 5-story building with 61 strata units in compliance with the zoning for the entire development. And if approved, this development will complete the final phase of the Emery Village development with a grand total of 411 units. Residents of all phases share access to the shared amenity across all phases, including a children's play area. This is all noted on the slide. An indoor amenity space, which included 20-meter lap pool, gym space, multi-purpose room, and a meeting room, and a picnic area to the south of phase 3. Next, please. The proposal is mostly a 5-story building, a step down to 3-story where the building adjoins the Yorkwood development. There are 2 levels of underground parking. The units are a mix of 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, meeting the zoning requirements, as well as providing 9 3-bedroom units, that is 10% of the total unit counts. The proposed unit, number of units, floor area, height, setbacks, and parking are in compliance with the CD 115 as stated. This is the site plan. Vehicle access, just quickly go over this. Vehicle access to the underground parkade will be from Emery Place, that is to the right of the proposal, to the right of the slide. 2 pedestrian access point to the site. The main entrance is off of Emery Court, and then the secondary access is from the semi-private courtyard access from the set of stairs at Emery Place. I want to point out that stormwater and sanitary main are located between the site and then the adjacent townhouse development, as shown in red, outlined in red on the site plan here. District requirement is that no net increase in the rate and volume of stormwater runoff from pre-development to post-development conditions. And this goal is achieved by taking into account existing groundwater elevations and infiltration rates when designing on-site stormwater management systems. The district also requires erosion and sediment control, which is required for all development projects that involves excavation or soil disturbance to ensure creeks and other sensitive aquifer in the area are protected from the impact of sediment and sediment-laden construction water. And lastly, an arborist report assessing the impact of proposed development on this site for both on-site and off-site trees is required and have been reviewed by the DMV arborist. Next one. The project has been reviewed against the applicable DPAs, form and character, and sustainability. In terms of form and character, the heights and the massing step down to the adjacent single-family and house development to reduce the massing and the overlook impact. The building is modulated by a gable roof line, bay windows, and generous roof overhangs. Varied building material consists of lapped panel and shingle siding, and granite and color accents are all distinctive of a mountain village character. And overall, this phase contributes interest to variation, yet a cohesive building design across the entire four-phase development. And in compliance with the energy and water conservation and greenhouse gas emission reduction guideline, the proposal will be built to step 3 of the BC Energy Step Code with a low carbon energy system. And that concludes my presentation. The DP is ready for council consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be supporting the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder for the matter? Seconded by Councillor Ma. While I wasn't supportive of the Emery project to begin with, and I still wish we had not used some of the processes we did to make the density work, including the alternative approval process for it. The purpose of issuance of development permit is if they have completed the technical requirements, that it will not be unreasonably withheld. And so I will be supporting the motion, as I believe they've met that technical requirement. Councillor Ma.
Thank you. Thank you to staff and advisory design panel for their work. At this point, since the project has been previously approved and as the mayor mentioned, they met the technical requirements, it's entering stage or phase 4. Let's just continue on with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, sorry, I just want to check in. Councillor Back, your hand is still raised. That may be from the previous item, but just want to check in. Did you have a comment? You're muted. Oh, and now it says connecting to audio.
That's from the previous item, Your Worship. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to get you to restate your comments. We only caught the last little bit, but we can now hear you. So go ahead.
That's from the previous item, Your Worship.
Okay, there we go. That clears that up. Thank you so much.
Sorry
All
about
right. No problem. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Why did we phase this project?
Mr. Milburn, history on that?
Your Worship, I believe the applicant wished to phase. There isn't a phasing guideline in the development permit guidelines that I'm aware of that constrains that.
Sorry?
It's the applicant's choice.
Sorry, Your Worship, it was the applicant's intention to phase it in this fashion. And I'm referring back to development permit guidelines because that's the basis in which council must consider this application tonight. And there is no phasing guideline specific to this property.
I just, we talk about the speed at which things are done. I mean, we're over 5 years into this and we've got one building. I mean, it just goes on forever. This thing is going to be over 10 years, 15 years maybe by the time it's built. It just, I don't know. I brought up a couple of weeks ago an issue in our park, Kirkstone Park. And I stand by what I heard at that tour and what I said to council a couple of weeks ago. And we received a council, because of a question that I asked, a letter today from staff saying, that's not what was said. And that this development didn't impact the park, but there doesn't seem to be an understanding as to why the park was impacted. I spoke to Mr. Stewart today about it, and I think he is also concerned that we don't know why our park has been impacted this way. And it's important for us to find out.
To be clear, we've lost some trees in the park. They've died. We don't know why, correct?
Well, we have lost some through the looper moth. We know that. We've lost some are just dead.
Yeah, sorry, you just hadn't said tree loss.
Oh,
I
yeah,
figured
sorry.
that was
So
important.
tree loss. We were going on a tour about trees, and Kirkstone was the tour in which we were going. I sit on the Parks and Natural Environment Committee for the municipality, and we came across a grove of cedars that I understood were having to be taken down, healthy cedars, because their water source had been cut off. And so I brought that up, and now the response back to me is saying that's not what was said. So that's a whole nother issue I have to deal with. But my question is, I don't really care. I want to know why we're cutting down perfectly healthy cedars in a municipal park and why that's happening. And I know through this process on Emery that there has been water issues up there. Throughout this project, there has been significant water issues. That has been raised by people that know the area, neighbors. And so I'd like to understand through staff, Mr. Stewart, how we're going to find out why this park is suddenly being impacted and we're having to cut down healthy trees because of water or water loss. If it's not here, where is it? And let's figure out the problem and find a solution to it so we don't have to lose any more trees in Emery or in Kirkstone.
Your worship, I'll discuss this with staff tomorrow morning and we'll get an answer for council.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart.
Okay. I see no further speakers at this time. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8.9. This is project update, development approvals process review. And well, the motion is just to receive for information. The purpose of this opportunity is to do a check-in with council and see if you have any comments on it, but the final report will be in the fall. Mr. Milburn?
Well, thank you very much, Your Worship. Just some brief introductory comments. We have our consultant with KPMG and staff available to provide a brief presentation. I've encouraged them to be brief. This is really just a check-in because we have the preliminary results. We want to make sure council has the opportunity to shape the results, and a final report will be coming in early fall. And we look forward to receiving feedback from council tonight. Thank you.
Given what you've had to sit through, I'd say take your time.
Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can just bring up the slides.
Clerk, could I please be promoted to presenter? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It seems like tonight there's a lot of glitches. So our joint presentation probably will take 15 minutes and we'll try to be very quick. This is just a pre-summer, as Ms. Milburn said, pre-summer update. We are anticipating significant report back to you in about a couple months' time. And the next page, please. So October last year, we launched DAPR with a consultancy. And the reason for the consultancy is that our permitting activities are all encompassing, touch upon many systems and processes and departments. And we wanted to do a full diagnostic to understand our existing challenges and to make intelligent and best practice informed decisions moving forward. So the consultant process is the top bar, and we have wrapped up phase 3. And in the fall, in September and October, you will be receiving the final report and recommendation with the implementation roadmap. And at the outset, we have always said this DAPR process would be a two-pronged approach. While the consultant is looking at a comprehensive long-term strategy for us, we're also going to look at continuously improving our process along the way. And so this will be the focus of my 5 slides presentation tonight. And I wanted to say tonight with me in chamber is, of course, Dan Milburn and consultant from KPMG, and also Cheryl Chand, section manager of plan review, as well as Brett Dwyer, director of development services, available online as well. Next, please. Just to set the backdrop of PPP staff activities, this is just an infographic showing the volume of staff work in the past half and then year and a half. So from 2023 and 2024 year to date. And that just give you a sense, a front and center, what we do is customer service. And then that customer interaction point, the volume is really, really high. And in addition to the volume, I wanted to say that the complexity of our work has increased exponentially as well, with the scale of development getting increasingly larger as we build out our town centers, and the increasing ballooning of regulations from all level of governments. And so all those are putting stress on every aspect of the permitting process we experience. The next one, I have a fun quiz for you, just to test out your business intelligence. What do you think is the average number of applicable bylaws, policies, codes, regulations, and guidelines that a standard multi-story apartment building needs to be evaluated against? And do you think it's less than 20, or B, less than 50, or do you think it's more than 50? And so if you're thinking it's more than 50, then you're correct. So the answer is north of 50, and this is just the average and not accounting for highly specialized policies and regulations. So that just give you a sense of the heavily regulated landscape we're navigating through. And with the number of regulation we need to review, the referral process is also getting unwieldy. So we have our internal 10, 12 departments we refer to, but we also have outside agencies we regularly refer to. So next one. So this is the last 4 slides. I wanted to give you this update of the 4 focus area that staff have worked on quick win initiatives. And with the December 11, 2023 workshop, we clearly heard from council that taking actions right now is important, and that clear communication of expectation, timeline, and requirements with the applicants are critical. So this 4 buckets of a work area is just a way to organize and to focus on collective effort. But in reality, they're interrelated, and they really need to work hand in hand to achieve results. Number 1 is system. So this is referred to the support infrastructure, all the technology solutions supporting our permitting related work. Here, digital services and PPP staff have been working together, adopting this digital first user-friendly approach, improving and in some cases overhauling the systems. So example that we want to highlight here is the trace permit through our web portal. Now the turnaround date is 2 days. And so that's a significant improvement in terms of efficiency. I won't go into too much detail. The attachment 3 to this report, I'll list all the achievements as well as the ongoing effort we're doing. The next one is processes. Of course, processes is the cornerstone of DAPR. And we are talking about process flow redesign here. We're talking about short-circuiting certain steps, realigning resources for certain type of applications. So that function of triaging and streaming application are slowly coming into focus. We have redesigned several processes with very good outcome. And here the example we wanted to highlight is the delegated DVP. And the permit volume in this type of application is not insignificant. And then we have processed all those applications to date and received anecdotally very positive customer feedback. So that is a 30 to 40% of increase in efficiency, a reduction in process timeline. Next, please. It has been said by other studies that overregulation or outdated regulation is the single most significant pain point across all munis, resulting in delays and wasted resources in the permitting process. So our example in this space include the coach house application, where staff have streamlined the regulation and to reflect the community desire for a more permissive form of development or in infill housing. And of course, with our upcoming OCP and zoning review, of course, that will have a very significant impact to our application review work. And we will be sure to be looking at creating new policies and regulations with an eye for implementation efficiency and effectiveness. So my last slide is about resourcing, and this is a significant, the fourth and significant focus of staff effort. Underpinning all the challenges and issues we experience is resourcing. So in addition to the volume and high complexity, is this triple whammy of a tight labor market. It's hard to acquire talent and to retain talent. So the DAPR process is a change management exercise. It's all about the people. I know departments, all departments have put significant resource into effort into onboarding staff, into training staff, into cross-train, into mentoring and succession planning so that we have a resilient workforce to tackle the road ahead. And the last one I will add on a bit of a good news, which is the district is successful in winning the competitive UBCM DAPR grant. And the award is recognizing our commitment to provide good customer service. And this $150K will sure help us to achieve some key results in the next year. So with that, I will pass it on to consultant.
Okay, good evening. Thanks very much for having me here. Just by way of introduction, my name is Chris Sainsbury. I work for KPMG, where I'm a partner, and I lead KPMG's cities practice in Canada. I believe we held a council workshop probably back in December where you might have met my colleague, Melissa Ayres. Unfortunately, she's got some health issues, so she can't be with you today. So I've taken over.
I need you to speak up nice and loud.
Sorry, I'll speak into the microphone. Okay. Yeah, I believe you met my colleague, Melissa Ayres, who ran a council workshop back in December. Unfortunately, she can't be here today. She's got some health issues. So I've recently taken over leadership of the project. But just for a bit of context, I've been participating in probably over a dozen similar DAPR reviews for other municipalities across British Columbia and the Lower Mainland over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of lessons learned that we can bring to the table here. Next slide. So the purpose of today really is to provide a little bit of an update in terms of some of the interim findings, some of the recommendations around process improvement that we come up with, and to provide an update on suggestions to move forward. And just to remind you kind of the overall objective of the DAPR review, it was to help improve the efficiency and the efficacy of the district's approval processes and really to identify opportunities for improvement. So over the last 7 or 8 months now, KPMG has undertaken a holistic review, quite a comprehensive review of the district's development approval processes, which culminated in an interim report that we issued to staff back in February. And so this presentation is really to summarize some of those key findings, some of the process improvement recommendations that we've come up with so far. So core to this piece of work was to do quite a bit of engagement to get a real picture of what's actually happening here. So we took quite a holistic review process, engaging with almost like a 360-degree perspective, speaking with staff, speaking with council, speaking with the public, speaking with the development community, to really understand kind of all the pain points, the challenges, and the opportunities here. And so as part of this engagement, we engaged with 29 members of staff. We held interviews with quite a few housing providers, held a number of workshops, including one workshop with council back in December, I believe. And we issued a number of surveys as well. And that's given us a good picture of everything that's going on. And to combine that, we've brought to the table jurisdictional lessons learned from other similar comparable local governments here in Canada, as well as lessons learned from municipalities that we've worked with overseas. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to start with a couple of the things that the district is doing well, and then we'll move on to some of the challenges and recommendations going forward. Because I think it's important to understand what's working well and to build upon that. One of the things that we noticed in speaking to staff, but also applicants, is around the positive interactions that staff have been having with the development community. Yes, there are challenges, that's definitely noted, and yes, the challenges perhaps on timelines, but generally the level of customer service and interactions has been good. We also noted that, compared to other municipalities, there's a real willingness to work together across departments. Sometimes I often see organizations that are very siloed, but here you have the business units, you have IT, you have other functions really working together to try and make this a better process. And also, we've already seen over the last couple of months that planning has already initiated a bunch of initiatives to improve things, even before we release all our recommendations. So there's a real good culture of continuous improvement that we've observed here. And lastly, there's a real collaborative team where people have been helping each other. We understand there's been quite a bit of staff turnover in places, but the teams have come together to pitch in for each other. So those are some of the things that have been working well. Next slide, please. Just to cover off some of the challenges. So in our final report, we'll have very detailed observations and findings, but we just wanted to cover a few of them here. The first one is that there's a little bit of a culture of risk aversion, particularly for high risk, high consequence decisions. So particularly those related to complex applications. Often staff want to make sure things are absolutely correct and make sure all the information is there, which can lead to some hesitation and slowing some of the timelines, which was identified as a pain point. Another thing that came up, and this is something most common that we find across most municipalities, is incomplete applications or poor quality applications that arise due to different reasons, perhaps incomplete information on the websites or communications, or maybe just a misaligned understanding between staff and applicants. The third we have here is around uncertainty about making key decisions where kind of negotiations are made on a case-by-case basis. That often requires consultation with senior staff, which can be a little bit of an iterative process. And lastly, what we found is there's a lot of technologies and supporting software here at the district, but they don't all talk to each other and they could be better aligned to support processes. So those are some of the high-level challenges that we found. Next slide, please. So on here, we've summarized key recommendations where we came up with 14 recommendations. I'm not going to go through them all today. I'm just going to touch on a few, and these will kind of feature in the final report. A couple of them relate to training, so staff training to gain more consistency around customer service, around change management is thought of as kind of fundamental to a lot of these things. Recommendations 11 and 12, really building a performance management system where you start actually tracking and measuring, how long does it take to do things. This we've actually found really successful elsewhere where people have been implementing a lot of changes. Actually finding a baseline and measuring against it is actually quite a powerful tool, not just to improve, but also to really understand and build momentum around what can be done, and that really creates a positive atmosphere. Another one that came up is around the whole technology side of things. I think there is technology there, but it could be better aligned and better mapped to existing processes. I believe when they were probably introduced, maybe they did reflect the processes at the time, but obviously things have evolved over the years. And the last one, maybe recommendation 14, just to build on some of the things that staff have mentioned already, is taking the opportunity to really right-size the legislative framework, which is a big impedance in terms of processing and complications. What we're seeing elsewhere is a real opportunity to simplify and streamline a lot of the policy framework. And I understand that this is a process that you're all going through and commencing. So that's great. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide. So just in terms of the way forward, so it's clear that there's a strong desire to improve things here at the district. So one of the things that we're going to be working on before we finalize our final report is an implementation roadmap. And I know this was a question that council posed previously around what does implementation look like and how is it kind of manifested elsewhere. So we've taken a lot of lessons learned from supporting other organizations through the implementation of similar recommendations. And it boils down to a number of things. The first thing I think is realizing that this needs a long-term commitment. Results are not going to happen overnight. So typically these implementation roadmaps can be anywhere between 12 to 24, even 36 months. Of course, some of them will have quick wins. So you'll see some improvements straight off the bat, but some take longer. So the first stage is really coming up with a prioritization of how to roll these initiatives out, just recognizing that staff are already really busy as it is. So this is kind of an extra burden, but an important project to improve the way approvals are made here at the district. The second thing we wanted to note is around resourcing. So it's really important that adequate resources are there to support and lead the implementation. This is not something that can be done off the side of staff's desk. Staff are already busy kind of approving applications. So this is something that needs to be supported as well. Change management, communication, another very important success factor here. Ultimately, we're looking at improving and changing the way people do work for the better. That obviously can be sensitive at times. So supporting that with effective communication, change management, securing buy-in is really important to build that momentum going into the future. And the last thing that will come together is produce an implementation plan and roadmap that ties everything together, that's logically built, that's realistic, that's practical, and that can be achieved in a realistic timeframe. So the plan now is to come back to council to present the final report and the implementation roadmap in the early fall, probably in October, I believe. So that's it for my presentation, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Councillor Murray, you have a motion? Thank you. Is there a seconder for receipt? Second by Councillor Mott. Councillor Murray, your comments?
Thank you for the presentation. So walk me through, like, staff is going to have to implement all these changes, or are you going to be with us along the way? How are we going to actually get this done?
Yeah, so we've been working with staff to come up with an implementation plan, which is probably going to be rolled out over anything between 12 and 36 months, perhaps. Come October, the plan is we'll build this plan, help staff build this plan for what it looks like, what are the resources needed to support that. But the intent is that KPMG, as your consultant, will not be implementing these changes for you. This is something that really needs to be done internally by staff itself.
So how is it going to be resourced and how much is it going to cost? Do we know the answers to those questions?
We have a $150,000 grant to help with.
Well, I
some of
can't
the
imagine
transition,
that's going to
but
be very
will it
much. That might
exceed
cover a couple of months.
Mr. Milburn?
Yes, over time it will. A big part of how the development function works, though, at the district is that we work on a business model. So we cover our costs through fees. And with increased development activity that we're anticipating because of the provincial legislative agenda, we'll be absorbing those costs within the department. And we are realigning our resources. We've currently chosen one of our key staff, Lisa Stallum, who leads our customer service administrative team, to assist with implementation. It's particularly around change management. So change management will be the key to success in this particular initiative. And so we're looking at assigning the appropriate supervisory capacity as well as staff capacity. We have definitely learned this can, and it has been stated, cannot be done on the side of someone's desk if it's to be done efficiently and effectively. And so we typically look at various secondments of staff within various departments to fill gaps. And then we bring in staff on a temporary basis to address those issues, and we cover those costs internally with fees. Thank you.
So I'm just concerned that it's going to be up to us to do this instead of this being funded and implemented as it's been laid out by KPMG, and that we get this work done as soon as we can. I think it's fundamental. In October of last year, I got a text from a builder that's been building in this community for 50 years. And I note on your interviews, we interviewed 4 industry reps. Who are those just developers?
I can't recall, but I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. So, and then it said we've reduced our permit time down to 70% reduction. Is that right? Is that what I saw in the slides? Oh yeah, here it is. 70 trade permits online, 70% reduction in resolution time compared to the prior 6 months. That doesn't tell me a lot. Like, what was the prior 6 months? What was the time in the prior 6 months? I'm just going to talk because we need to answer these questions. Because in October, which was say 8 months ago, right? Or, you know, maybe a little bit longer than that, a temporary electrical permit took 2 weeks. and a job can't move forward prior to that temporary electrical permit being issued, they used to be able to get it, and this is a 50-year contractor on the North Shore, builds houses everywhere, big expensive ones. They used to get it in 30 minutes. So the fact that we've reduced it 75% down to the 6 months, it still is so much longer than it used to be. Today, I had a phone call from someone who came in with a permit that they had been issued and they wanted to cancel it. They went to the front counter and they wanted to cancel it at the front counter, and they were told that they had to email in a request to cancel it. So they left the building, phoned me. I phoned the front counter, talked to someone. It wasn't the person that they talked to. Asked if they could just assist this person who does not come in here on a regular basis, has taken out 2 permits in their life. And I said, could you please help? And then I phoned the person back and said, go in and search for this person and they'll help you. I just give you those examples because I worry that this is not going to happen. And we're looking at 24 to 36 months, 2 to 3 years. And I get it. Change takes a lot of time to turn around and to bring a very young, new, group of very talented employees and learn all of this stuff. We've had a lot of big retirements. A lot of corporate knowledge has walked out the door. I just need more certainty that this is actually going to happen and not start and then get pushed aside because there's something else that we're doing. And I'll just finish with, using the, I'm just so much more concerned about the customer service experience and the length of time that everything takes based on things not connecting from a technology point of view. But using the example of coach house and secondary suite permissive regulations as the right size or the red tape that needs to be cut. I mean, I have to say that is the last of my concerns. When I have builders that have been building here for 50 years, and they've gone from 30 to 2 weeks to get a temporary electrical permit, I'm very concerned. So when staff comes back in the fall and yourselves, I really need to understand how this is laid out, how it's going to be paid for, the structure of it, and we need to keep regular tabs to make sure that we're getting through this. I would just ask a question. Is there any municipality that does this very well in the region? And if you don't want to answer that question, you can, but maybe I'll phone you tomorrow and ask you on the phone. But I am really concerned if there's examples through the region of municipalities that do this well, what can we learn from them so we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah, so I won't speak to any specific one, but I would say that all the municipalities that we worked with face very similar challenges. I think it's the increase in volume of development over the last years with staffing challenges. It seems to be a problem right across the region, as well as Canada. So this is not, you're not alone in this, in terms of timelines getting longer. In terms of municipalities that are doing a lot better, so municipalities that sort of we've worked with, done similar reviews, a year or 2 ago, they're showing huge improvements right across the board, and they've got the numbers to measure that. There's still a long way to go. This is like a continuous improvement process, and things are obviously going to change. But
right. So we have a lot to learn by the amount of volume, and is it too much for us to handle? And if you're in the restaurant industry and you don't have enough seats for everybody, and your burgers aren't cooked properly, and you got warm beer, you're not in business for very long. You only take so many. If there's 10,000 waiting at the door and the house only holds 1,000 to the party, you don't just squish them in because the experience won't be good. So I do think we need to look in the mirror a bit and ask ourselves, is service quality, customer service, is that the most important thing? To me, it is. I come from a small business background. My family owned a small business. The reason they lasted 75 years selling nails and bolts was because they had impeccable customer service. And my dad would go out of his way on a Sunday to open up the hardware store to find a clamp so somebody wouldn't flood their basement. And that's why people kept coming back. So I just, and I know that somewhere in the sea of paper that I've got, there is a suggestion about a survey as well. And I really think that survey needs to be done on a regular basis to check in with our customers to say, any improvements? Have we made a difference? Are we getting this right? Because in the small business community, your customers are going to guide you as to what your business model is. And if you're on task or not. I want to hear from those customers first to say, are we making your life easier? I think we're so much about what works for us that often we're not thinking about what we need to create to help those people that are coming through the front door. Thank you for your work.
So did you want to add? Okay, so next I've got Councillors Ma and Pope. Councillor Ma.
Graham, Chris, thank you for this. This at a high level, I look at the key challenges. Yeah, you identify 4 key challenges, and then I'm looking at the way forward, and you got 4 steps. Is there any sort of alignment between the key challenges and the way forward? Is there like a 1-for-1 match, like this one's was, or
no? So the way forward are kind of just key success factors that kind of tie together when we build the implementation plan. The key challenges we took and we worked, we came up with potential opportunities and worked with staff to come up with recommendations. So a lot of those challenges would have translated into recommendations.
Okay, so I'm just looking at if these are challenges, is there like an action plan for each one of those challenges somewhere then?
In the report, we identify kind of findings and observations and then potential opportunities to address those challenges.
Okay. I guess I'm just looking for, as a councilor, there's some concrete steps and knowing that there's some way forward. So that's going to come in the final report then?
So in the final report, there'll be, for each of the recommendations, there'll be implementation steps that set out exactly, what are the proposed steps as well as potential resourcing needs.
Yeah, because I think, just responding to our clients, we need some very specific steps. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Councillor Pope.
Thanks very much for your report. I have to echo some of the things that Councillor Emery has pointed out.
May I just get you to direct your microphone towards you? Great, thank you.
Thank you. It's kind of ironic that the DAPR review is to improve efficiency and efficacy of DNV approvals, and yet we have to wait 2 to 3 years to get all these things implemented and improved. It's so slow. Like we approved this March 23, and it took 6 months to hire a consultant. Why did that take 6 months? It's not you to answer. It would be Mr. Milburn, I think.
Mr. Milburn, why did it take 6 months to get a consultant on?
For expenses over a certain limit, we have a standard procurement process where we go to market. Market notification has to be prepare all the documents, do the market notification, evaluate the responses. Those things take time. We have certain, of course, obligations at the regional, federal, and provincial level to go through those types of procurement processes rather than quickly sole sourcing for contracts of a certain amount. So we have certain duties under law to go through some of these processes. The timeline for that procurement is in many ways governed by the amount of procurements that are happening in the organization at the time. So that fluctuates. Certainly when we hear council's direction to make improvements to bylaws and so on, we can advance those outside of a procurement process. And I think that's reflected in the quick wins. We've tried to respond to council. There are a number of things we could do in the absence of having the complete report from the consultants. We've tried to emphasize those and summarize those in the report.
Thank you. What I'm also hearing from your report is that we're talking about how this is all about change management. Yes, it is. And that means changing the culture. And I believe that the culture that is so ingrained here is stifles innovative thinking, stifles movement forward. Just little things like you've pointed out in this report that, you know, every step of the way, staff need to involve senior management to make any kind of decisions. Like, these are all extremely problematic, that siloed approach to planning and moving things forward. It just doesn't work, and it's archaic. So I really am very appreciative of some of the work that you've been able to do already and implement some of these changes. I am pleased about the coach house and secondary suites, because with the latest council vote, that's all homeowners have been left to do with their property. Is the only option they have is to build coach houses and secondary suites. And so those processes do need to be sped up as quickly as possible. And again, the local government development approvals program, the $150,000, it's actually a provincial funding, and comes from this provincial government. And it was supposed to be used in part for, quote, innovative ways to speed up DAPR. And I'm not hearing that. I'm a little disappointed. I'm not hearing anything about innovative ways. I think things like what we've heard already are things we actually already knew needed to be changed, because they're obvious, because staff deal with them every day here. So yeah, I'm encouraged by some of the progress. Again, I think the progress has to move more quickly in implementing in particular. And that's on us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson, your comments?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll be brief. I reiterate the point that many residents have raised with all of us, the issue of delays in the approval process. And also many residents have raised with me that they're not happy with the customer service experience. So when you made that statement that that aspect is satisfactory, that didn't quite correspond to what people have told me. The only thing that I would say, when I read all of the report and the appendix, and one line jumped off the page for me, and that was decentralize and delegate decision-making authority. If we could have people who are empowered to figure out what needs to be in like the 30-minute versus the 2.5 weeks, surely there's somebody that can just identify what needs to be done there and just act on it. And I come entirely from the private sector. I run my own business, have all my life. I wouldn't work well for others, because they'd probably tell me what to do. Coming from that environment, I find district governance just very bureaucratic and rule-bound and slow. So I think if we can penetrate that a little bit and create more empowered employees that are more able to take the initiative. And with that, I won't say any more, except I very much look forward to your next report. Thanks for your good work, and I will study it with great interest.
Yeah, I'll just say, obviously, this is an exercise in vigilance, right? Constantly looking for ways to improve our processes and to speed them up. I think the real innovation piece, I will say I was disappointed. So the provincial government started working towards an AI-based project in, I think it was Kamloops. And initially, the idea was it was gonna, pump 1,000 successful building permits in, and then it was going to, from that, learn enough to be able to make recommendations on which ones were likely to proceed and which ones were going to have challenges, and therefore your staff didn't have to pore over the entire thing. They were going to get recommendations about which ones were going to need a closer eye and which ones could move. And then the project changed, and the project, instead of being that kind of innovative piece where you were actually going to be able to reduce the amount of time staff had to spend on each building permit, the project got changed to being essentially a virtual assistant, where a member of the public could find out what their next step was, but it didn't actually reduce the amount of time staff had to spend on the project at all. It just meant that the member of the public now, maybe would be told what their next step in the process was. And I got to tell you, that was a lowered expectation. I mean, that was, it was intended to be a really revolutionary, innovative project. And I don't know why the government backed away from it. Because at the end of the day, the AI receptionist, as they were doing it, I don't think actually helps lower costs for municipalities. And I don't think it genuinely will help speed up projects. So I was frustrated with that. When it comes to the time that my office has to spend with permits, hands down, it is stormwater management projects right now. It is complex. The staff, the public don't understand what they're obligated to do under it. Construction workers, the designers, all of the consultants that you now have to hire to design this system for rainwater retention and for displacement. That I get more questions than anything else in our system. Of all of the permits that come in, and the stormwater management is hands down the most time laborious process that I would say we have. And it's people are pulling their hair out. So we have to get a closer look at that, revise it to maybe something a little more reasonable and achievable. I will say at my peril, most of the permit questions that I deal with on single family houses, the delays are primarily because people are trying to build to 100% of their maximum. And so every time you have to make a minor amendment, you have to amend the whole thing. If people were building to 90% of the maximum capacity, 90% of the floor plan and 90% of everything else, then if there was a small change that needed to be made, easy peasy. But instead, everyone's going after 100%. And it makes it so that there's no wiggle room for our staff to be able to make minor accommodations. It's requiring redraws and it's slowing stuff down. And I would say that's a majority of the single family house permit delay questions that I deal with are because they're building to max. And so I don't know how we can address that. I mean, from, is there a way we could incentivize 95% rather than 100%, something that's actually going to go through? Because I get that it's a hard cap on we can't just increase the square footage to fix this and increase the square footage to fix that. And so it's anyway, those are the two issues that come to my office the most is delays from minor revisions on maxed out projects and the stormwater management plan. Councillor Beck. Councillor Beck, can you hear?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments on this. Thank you very much for the report. Just in terms of some of the key challenges that I saw there, in terms of applications that are incomplete. I think sometimes people will be coming forward with an application and they don't always know all of the requirements at the outset of a process. And I think that's really frustrating for people, recognizing that sometimes things can change, requirements can change as information pops up as you're going through a process. But I think there's definitely some occasions where we could be more clear up front in terms of the steps with certain processes. I certainly heard some of the comments made around the table around, I heard Councillor Hanson use the word empowerment. And I think that is something that we struggle with. I think our staff are often not empowered to, make decisions when, certain situations arrive, and that does cause delays and sometimes frustration. So I think, anything we can do to, give staff that attitude that it's customer service first. I really do think, as it's been highlighted, so much of this boils down to, providing excellent customer service. And when somebody, calls the district, reaches out to us, they should get a response and they should know, where they're at in the process. In terms of technology, and I heard Mary Little's comments around AI, I wanted to encourage staff to look at what Kelowna is doing. I attended a seminar as part of the FCM convention this year. One of the panelists was from the city of Kelowna. It was in fact the CAO there, who was talking about how they've really embraced AI and how they've had great results with it in terms of how they've been able to increase the turnover of applications and quickly turn things around. And it's worked very well for them. So staff may want to look and see what exactly they're doing there. No, I think this is great. I look forward to the full implementation plan in the fall because I want to try and move these actions forward as quickly as possible. But this is really good work and important. Thank you.
Councilor Mary, did you have?
I just, I wanted to add two things. The ones I get, the calls I get are, I started going down this road and then I thought I was gonna be almost done. And then an inspector came and said, oh, now you gotta do this, this, and this. And adding on and adding on and adding on. And they're just, they don't understand, they need to understand the whole alphabet before they start. Not halfway through, not towards the end. The surprises are too much. And the second thing is the culture of equity. That we have to be fair to everybody across the board and not one community can get more than another. But if you look at our community, like every community, there's always, imbalances. We look at our community and you could say Woodlands, for instance, up the arm, gets nothing compared to this community right here that we're looking out of the window. So there's all sorts of inequities because some of us live on the water, some of us live on the mountain, some of us own, some of us don't. But there's this culture that, oh, we have to be fair, better check with the team. And I think that is just grinding us to a halt sometimes because that's where there's no calls. When I first got elected, there was a culture of staff making a lot of calls. 30 years ago, they would make a lot of judgment calls on things. And the council of the day started pulling that back and trying to get that pendulum somewhere in the middle. But now it's shifted the other way, where staff are not empowered to make some simple, and learn. That's how you learn. You learn by, making those calls and sometimes you make mistakes. But that's how you get back up and that's how you learn. And we've got a very, we used to have a very senior management team, then everybody in the middle, and then there were the new ones that were coming on board. Right now, that senior management team is pretty much gone. And we have maybe the longest employee we've got, except for that guy over there, is 10 years in some departments. And so that's very challenging as well. There used to be a lot more ability for discussion too about things or connecting with staff members. And yeah, I want us to allow them to be more creative and be able to learn and not feel so structured and unable to be able to, answer a question.
Okay. That's your council check-in. Okay, I see no further speakers at this time, so the motion is to receive for information. It's been moved and seconded, I believe, or one moved and then seconded. So call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded.
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you very much for your presentation. All right, the last item up for this evening's discussion is item 811. This is the council report for facilitating the Naloxone program in the District of North Vancouver. Councillor Back, your motion, you have some opening comments? And maybe if
yes.
we'll call it as your motion, if you have a seconder for the motion? Second by Councillor Murray. Councillor Back, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Little. So tonight I'm pleased to present my report asking for council support for an initiative that I believe has the potential to save lives in our community. I want to begin by acknowledging that I was inspired to bring this motion forward after hearing the tragic story of Sydney McIntyre Starko. So Sydney was an 18-year-old University of Victoria student who died in her dorm room of a preventable fentanyl poisoning death in January of this year. My ask tonight is to ask staff to report back on increasing the availability of naloxone within the District of North Vancouver, in addition to increased CPR and naloxone administration training for district staff, which should include council, as well as to look at the opportunity to create a program for businesses in the district to have naloxone available in their places of business. Naloxone, also known as Narcan, is a medication that can reverse opioid overdoses, providing precious minutes for emergency services to arrive. Precious minutes that can mean a difference between life and death, and those precious minutes that Sydney never got. The toxic drug crisis was recently the subject of a joint meeting of elected leaders from across the North Shore. And as we know, it's affecting virtually every community, including our own. In 2023, BC Emergency Services reported 380 overdose poisoning calls between the district and the city. And we know that approximately 20 to 30 North Shore residents lose their life each and every year to toxic overdoses. By initiating a naloxone program in the District of North Vancouver, we would be leading the North Shore and joining other communities in our region, such as Burnaby and Richmond, who have already initiated similar programs. And as much as it's about saving lives, it's also about reducing stigma by making naloxone as accessible in a public facility as a defibrillator, for example. We would let anyone suffering from an opioid use disorder know that they matter and that their community cares about them. The second part of my motion is around facilitating a program for businesses in the district to have the option of providing naloxone availability. And I saw this when I was, when several of us were recently at the FCM conference. Calgary's done this. And I believe that when small businesses are equipped with naloxone, they can become active participants in community health and safety. They demonstrate their commitment to the well-being of their customers and their employees. And by openly supporting a program like this, small businesses can also help to destigmatize addiction. So those are sort of my opening comments. Would be happy to answer any questions that council may have, and thank you for allowing me to bring this forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mears, seconder on the motion.
I'm not too much more to add. Just thank you, Councillor Back, for bringing this forward. And certainly, I think this is a no-brainer to be able to have the ability for those in our public facilities to be able to understand how to do this. Much like, the defibrillator, people that have allergic reactions, they carry EpiPens. It is a way to save lives. Our family was, my brother's family was touched by the loss of a young woman as well through this drug crisis and fentanyl. And it's awful. It's just amazing that we're dealing with it at this level. And there's so many more levels of structure that the federal government and the provincial government need to be putting in place in order to deal with this. And certainly the treatment of people with addiction is one of them. Securing our borders, for instance. So I wholeheartedly support this and thank Councillor Back for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Back, for bringing this motion forward. This motion has been endorsed by the North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use, committee which I chair. It has also been endorsed by the Medical Health Officer, Dr. Alex Choi. Councillor Back has correctly stated naloxone saves lives. Without a naloxone strategy, many more persons would have perished of overdose due to toxic street drugs. BC is continuing to lose approximately 6.5 British Columbians per day to toxic street drugs. During this meeting, a couple British Columbians will have perished due to overdose. This number would be significantly higher without naloxone. The intervention of naloxone is the single greatest source of saving lives across the province. And as pointed out in this report of Councillor Back, the district has the opportunity to be a leader across the North Shore communities in pursuing naloxone training. So thank you for this initiative, and I do look forward to the staff report coming back.
Thank you. Councillor Ma?
I echo many of the comments, and I want to thank Councillor Back for bringing this forward. I work in the downtown east side, and I've been trained to use naloxone. Fortunately, I have not need to administer it. I think it's important to remember that the majority of overdoses occur elsewhere, such as people's homes. So the more people that are trained, the better. I found a stat, it's kind of dated a bit, but most deaths occur indoors. 56% were in private homes, 28% were in social housing or SROs, shelters, hotels, and 15% were in vehicles, streets, or parks. So, you know, I think Councillor Back said, you know, to get rid of the stigma. Like I have a couple of kits in my house and in my car, but the more people that have it, it's like a first aid kit. Hopefully they're trained to use it, and hopefully it does save lives. So thank you, Councillor Back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pope?
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Back, for this important motion. I think as a community, we all need to ask ourselves, if someone is dying from a toxic overdose, would we know what to do? Would we know where to get naloxone? Or if someone had it on hand, would we even know how to use it? And so anything that we can do to save a life is worth doing. And everybody who can should be able to get this training, and we should be facilitating that. So all of those points in the motion are excellent, and I support them. I just wanted to add that in addition to possibly, in addition to the venture that would have businesses display signs that they have naloxone, I'm wondering if they could also, you know, potentially include the fentanyl testing strips, because I recently heard about these fentanyl testing strips that, you know, determine whether the product is safe or not. And I know the medical health officer would certainly encourage the use of the greater use of those as well. Again, anything that helps to keep the community safe is worthwhile. And I just wanted to add to your stats, Councillor Ma, on how many people are dying and where they're dying. And yes, we know that most of them die in the home. We also know on the North Shore, it's a little bit different here, that I've also recently learned from sitting in on the Substance Abuse Committee and meeting with the medical health officer. And we know that it's mostly single men. On the North Shore, it's mostly single men, young men, who are in the throes of a relationship breakup or a divorce. And they're alone in the world. And it's really sad. And yes, we can do more, and we should do more. And I think we can give some thought to all of these things we're starting to learn more about in regards to these horrific and preventable deaths. So thank you, Councillor Batt.
Just my own comments on it. I'm supportive of the motion. I do think that we still have to be doing a few externalities here. We still need to recognize that the nasal spray is what we need to get into our community, not the injectables. Injectables have a shorter lifespan. They're currently in short supply. The nasal spray has a much lower chance that you'll injure the person in the process versus the injectables. And so we need to work on getting that supply in. It also has to be voluntary. We can't expect our staff to take this training. We voluntarily let staff become first aid attendants. I was a first aid attendant for 10 years with industrial first aid, and it's lapsed now. But it is an extra obligation and it's a stress. And I was an industrial first aid responder on the day that a forklift operator was killed in a horrible accident. And so it has to be voluntary. It has to have training. It has to have support. It's not just something we can simply say, well, since it's good to have everybody have it, we should just have everybody always have the supply. It still needs to be voluntary. It still needs to be something that, yes, it should be readily accessible and people should be encouraged to do it, but it has to be voluntary. And then I guess we need to make sure that we understand, do the Good Samaritan rules cover us as a corporation, as an organization, and making sure that if a person is acting on behalf of the District of North Van, that, you know, do we have to have certain types of training for them to be able to administer the first aid? Do we meet that standard? If a person is further injured from it, is that obligation onto the municipality, or is it protected under Good Samaritan laws so that you know, you're protected, I know, as an individual in this province for trying to help, but are you protected when you're not acting as an individual to try to help? And so I'd like some answers to some of those questions, but I think it's still a good general direction for us to be going to make it available to people. But again, you know, with 20 to 30 people out of a 90,000 person population, it's very hard to make sure that the right stuff is in the right place in so many circumstances, especially when you've got only a 2-year shelf life on the injectables. And so it may be a significant investment. So we'll have to answer all those questions and figure out how we can apply it. But yes, if people want to get the training, and then I think we should find ways for our staff, council, board members to get additional training where we reasonably can. Call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Sorry, did you want to do additional comments, Jordan? I got you as voting in favor.
Yeah, I'm obviously in favor. I just wanted to say thank you, Council, for your support. Also wanted to acknowledge Councillor Hanson and thank him for his work in leading the North Shore Standing Committee on Substance Use. Certainly you raised some good points, Mary Little, around the nasal spray, and that would be my hope, is that we can increase the availability of the spray specifically, and some of the other points you raised as well, I think should come back in the staff recommendation. But just want to say thank you, everyone, for your support.
Thank you. Okay, and that was moved, seconded, and carried. And all right, we are pretty close to out of time, but we do have an opportunity for reports, and this is our last public meeting for over a month. And so I did just want to make a report. It was my pleasure to recognize 100 years of water from Metro Vancouver. So 1924 is when they consolidated the utilities for Metro Vancouver to become the water provider for the Lower Mainland. And so this last weekend was the recognition of that. And I was there on behalf of the board of Metro Vancouver as well, somehow, even though I'm not a board director, but that happened, to recognize their 100th anniversary. And it's something you take for granted, but when water is an issue, it's your top issue. You cannot survive without potable water supply. And it's amazing to think what happened, you know, with 2 million people, all the flora and fauna and everything in the Lower Mainland makes this place so beautiful. For us, for the potable water source, it's 3 rivers, 3 little rivers, you know, the Coquitlam, Seymour, and Capilano that provide the water for all of that. And I find that to be absolutely remarkable. And it means that millions of people can open their tap at their house and receive high quality drinking water for a very low cost. So high that I mentioned in the meeting, we had international students for years. And one of the first things I had to teach them when they came in was that the tap water was safe. You didn't need bottled water. You could go to the tap, try it out. You know, you'll have to get used to the taste a little bit. It'll be a little different than your home water, but it was really high quality water. And just seeing the kids like, maybe I don't know if I'm going to do that. And but it is. We have world-class water services, so it was a good opportunity to recognize that. Would anybody else like to make a report? Mr. Stewart, did you have a report?
Your worship, I just wanted to share with council that we just got notice that we've received a significant grant for Kate's Wigwitchin, over $4 million to work on the foreshore. So we're now going to start the process of discussing that further with the Tsleil-Waututh and moving forward and ensuring that it's part of the budget process.
Thank you. All right, you're eager to move on. Councillor Back, your hand is raised. Is that from before, or do you have a report?
From before, sorry.
Okay, thanks. All right, we've completed the business of the evening. I'll accept adjournment. Accepted. Council, members of the staff, public, thank you so much for all your work preparing the reports for tonight for our consideration. We do now have a break from public meetings, which is also a break for staff. No change in direction for the next month or so. So you get a little bit of time to focus on things and maybe get a vacation in there as well. If you are traveling, please be safe. We've had far too many road casualties in the province of BC in the last few weeks. Watch out for those motorcyclists out there. They're particularly vulnerable. On behalf of the council, thank you all for your participation. Have a great evening. Good night.